there were strains that you could get back in the day. Maple leaf indica is a good one. That strain was so good for IBS and Crohn's and colitis and just stomach issues. It relaxed your gut so hard. I actually had friends that would shark themselves.
Welcome to Robertson Stash. Season 6 is brought to you by World Needs Cannabis, empowered by Puffco.
But if you've smoked something truly special in the last decade in Colorado, Scott has probably had something to do with its lineage. Is that a correct statement?
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming on the show today, man.
Hey, man, no worries. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Wow. So we've known each other for quite a while. I think we met in Amsterdam back in the day. I did a show out at Jason's gallery.
Yeah, decade plus, man.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
What you been up to this last decade?
Man, just raising two really great boys and watching the industry grow into what we have today, and just enjoying life, man. Traveling the world, trying to experience as much as I possibly can, and live as long as I possibly can. You know.
Yeah.
So
health is wealth.
Yeah, health is wealth,
start getting
man.
over 40.
Yeah, definitely.
So if anyone out there listening doesn't know the full story, can we start at the beginning and give us a little background on maybe like where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
Sheffield, Alabama, which is in the northwest corner of Alabama.
So the accent has still stuck with
you know, if I go home, no one thinks I'm from there, but it's southern compared to the western, drawl.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I've been here in Colorado for 28 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. What kind of kid were you?
I was that kid who was good in school, basketball, bicycle rider, but always pushing the buttons of authority, and outwardly a good kid, but constantly in trouble, constantly grounded.
Testing the limits.
Yeah, man. And I was raised by my grandparents. My mom worked full time. She was a commercial banker. My dad, they were divorced when I was like 3. So my dad was like a master electrician, lineman, worked for Sheffield Utilities, then Memphis Utilities, and then ultimately he ended up in New York on Long Island for Lilco back in the 90s. So I traveled all over as a kid, to see him, and experienced the East Coast of the U.S. and everywhere. But yeah, my granddad Leroy, Leroy was basically the driver, for most of my childhood. I have a strain called Leroy,
Oh, really?
So yes, I messed up with Hendrix. I actually put LR at the beginning of his name. So he's LR Hendrix.
LR Hendrix.
Yeah. So a little nod to my granddad, but man, from a school standpoint and, license and all that, everybody's always like, is that supposed to be sir? And it's like, no, my dad loved his granddad,
Oh, shit.
But yeah, man, my granddad was like from a sharecropper family from Mississippi, so he was kind of a tough cookie growing up. He dropped out of school when he was like 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
Or not 5, when he was in the 5th grade. Sorry. When he was in the 5th grade.
5 years kindergarten. I'm out of here.
He used to tell this story that when he was in the 5th grade, he was sitting in math class and he just kind of had enough. And since his parents were farmers, he realized he could be better useful if he was on the farm. So he snuck out the window when the teacher had her back turned one day, went home to the farm, stole a pig, took the pig into town and traded it for a .22 rifle at 8 or 10 years old. So this is like 1913 or something like that.
Jeez.
So back when you could do that.
Yeah.
Got home, his dad was upset that he had taken a pig. He showed his dad what he traded it for, and his dad basically was like, "All right, you're going to be the hunter for the family. I'm going to give you 5 bullets every day. Either you come home with 5 squirrels or 2 rabbits and 3 squirrels, or you come back home with all 5 of those bullets every single day, or otherwise you're going to get beat."
Whoa.
So my granddad was a wicked hunter, growing up. I got to watch him hunt deer and turkey and all that stuff.
Wow.
Ultimately, though, he was a farmer, so I grew up picking strawberries and tomatoes and all that type of stuff with him. So
maybe that had something to do with how your life turned out, growing plants.
Yeah, man. I tell people, like, if you start growing plants and you have like a natural
green thumb
or connection to them or whatever, like look back in your family history. More likely, there's a farmer or two in there.
Yeah,
man.
Could be. Do you remember the first time that cannabis like caught your attention? Maybe not smoking it, but realizing the potential of it?
Well, I'm 51, so okay. I grew up in the South during the Nancy Reagan Dare era.
Yeah.
So, I can remember the Dare people coming around to school with the big tackle box that had all the drugs in it that they would pass around to all the kids so they could see them. And, I've always questioned authority, even from a young age. So, I never believed everything was quite as bad as everybody always made stuff out to be.
Smart.
And when I was like 11, so 1986, I was riding bikes with this kid we called Dirtbag Richie. Richie was one of those kids that was, a couple years older than everybody else that was in the 6th grade or 7th grade at the time. And we were riding one day and he's like, "Hey man, my brother got a new graphics bong and he's got some really good weed if you want to go smoke weed." And I can remember being like, pot, and at the same time being just, all right, let's go try it out. And, went to his house, smoked a freaking couple bowls, got really, really stoned, went back, got on our bicycles out in the cul-de-sac and just rode circles, for like an hour. And then my mom yells for me to come home.
Oh shit.
Because we lived at like a top of a hill. And what would take me 15 minutes to ride home, I think took me like 40. And she could see me coming up the hill, just super slow, zigzagging. And just was like, "What's wrong with you?" And
oh man.
Able to play it off, go to my room and, lay on my water bed and let it, fade away.
Yeah.
And then really the first time I saw good weed, I was having this talk with somebody the other day and we were trying to like really pinpoint that time. Do you remember the movie Spaceballs?
Yeah.
So Spaceballs came out in like 87.
Okay. So I must have seen it on VHS shortly after because I was 4.
So 88 would have been when the VHS tapes came out. I can remember watching Spaceball at a buddy's house after like riding skateboards. And his mom, who was one of those like super hippie, milfy moms, came in, sat down between us and pulled out a bag of just the best looking dark green buds and weed.
Wow.
And she didn't say what name it was or whatever. And we're watching Spaceballs on VHS. And she sits there and like rolls the joint up for us, lights it, passes it to my buddy. He takes a couple puffs off of it. I take a couple puffs off of it and I can just feel the couch just, sucking me in. And the last thing I remember was that scene where the alien pops out of the guy's stomach and is like, "Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling," across the counter. Dude, and she like tucked a blanket around me on the couch and like gave me a kiss on the forehead and was like, "Good night, honey," And after that, you're like, all right, there's a difference in weed, man.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, a couple summers later, that same buddy, we're in my backyard, breaking up some bud that had seeds in it. He throws it into my compost pile, like not really thinking about it. And all summer, my mom never went in the backyard. She was kind of an overweight lady. I did all the yard work and, all that stuff. So I tended these plants, just, keeping the poison ivy away from them and stuff like that, and letting them grow. And looking back, they were some sort of Afghani because they were, super short and squat and fat leaves and all that. And for whatever reason, man, into the summer, my mom got a freaking hair up her ass and was just like in the backyard one day doing, planting flowers or picking weeds or something.
Yeah.
And I was playing in like Sega or Nintendo. And man, I could hear she's just like, "Scott!" And echolocation, man. I could tell exactly where she was in the backyard.
You knew what that was about.
And I was just like, oh my God. And I remember like really going out there with my heart gripped in my throat and just scared to death. Because I'd always kind of been a good kid, you know, for the most part with my mom with that type of stuff. And I had a middle sister, that was a party animal, man. I mean, just ran my mom ragged constantly through high school with her antics. And she had actually been kicked out of the house at that point, you know, gone on to live her life. And I walked in the backyard, and Mom's standing back there with her hands on her hips, and she's just like, do you know what that is? It's like, in my heart, yeah, I know exactly what that is. But no, Mom, I don't know what that is. And she's like, it looks like pot. And I'm like, must be Melanie's. Just threw my sister under the bus. And, you know, years later, she questioned me again about it as I started the business and everything. And I, you know, owned up to it, you know. But yeah,
Did
man.
your sister get in trouble?
She was gone.
Oh yeah.
You know, but my mom held this like grudge against her for a bunch of years because of it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I finally confessed to everybody, Melanie just didn't really care, and Mom was like, you know, I was so mad at her for fucking years, you know.
Oh man.
But yeah, man,
That's
you know,
cool.
it was always something that I knew was a special plant, but I didn't really dive into it until I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what, when you started getting into it, what was the underground scene like back then? Very illegal, right? Like,
super illegal. Like in Alabama, if you got caught with a joint and a baggie, I mean, they would hit you with, you know, possession with intent to distribute and all kinds of stuff.
Really?
And you would hear people get mandatory minimums of 5 years or 10 years or whatever. And back then, I mean, growing, if you had enough plants or enough weight, like certain states would put you away for life, dude, you know? So early in my 20s, I went to New York.
Okay.
I was out in the Hamptons, out in East Hampton from like 20 years old till, God, 5-ish, 24, 25, before I came out here to Colorado.
What brought you out there?
The bicycle industry.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I started working in the bicycle industry when I was 15, just as like a helper mechanic to our local shop. It was easier to trade parts for I was into like BMX and dirt jumping, and mountain biking was really just beginning at that time in the late 80s, early 90s. And so, you know, getting into cycling, it was always something mechanical and intricate, and if you really took pride in it, I mean, it can be a beautiful thing. And I was
riding yourself.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And I was working for, you know, a really high-end shop at that time in Mobile, Alabama. I'd gone to school down there, and I was only there for a few months. And this position came open in East Hampton for a service manager for like a super high-end shop. And I called the guy and we talked, and he's just like, listen, dude, your qualifications are great, but you're in Alabama, man. You know, like if you could come up here, try out for 2 or 3 days, like let me get a feel for you. And then my dad was living out in like Lindenhurst on Long Island at the time. I called him up and was just like, yo, dude, I'm going to come up there and like commute the hour and a half out to the Hamptons, give this job a shot.
Wow.
And, you know, see what I could make of it. And I was in school for marine biology and marine botany at that time.
Oh,
and,
wow.
You know, so I kind of gave up on that dream at that point. Ended up in the Hamptons working with this shop called Cyclepath.
Cyclepath.
Yeah, Cyclepath.
It's a great name.
Yeah, dude, the clientele was insane. It was like Martha Stewart, Kathleen Turner, Steven Spielberg, Russell Simmons, Billy Joel.
Wow. Making bikes for these people?
Selling bikes to them, fixing their bikes.
Oh, moly.
Sometimes building custom bikes for them. Larry Gagosian, who's like one of the most badass art dealers in the U.S. Gagosian Galleries. Dude, you met so many people. And like the first week I'm in that shop, the boss was like, hey man, you're going to meet a lot of really, really famous people out here. If I ever catch you acting starstruck, you're fired.
Said that to you.
So as you know, Southern kid that really didn't care about Hollywood too much, it was never that big of a stretch, you know, to be like, oh, how are you today, Miss Turner? Or hi, Miss Stewart, you know, whatever. But every once in a while, you'd be like, holy shit, that's Steve Martin. Or, Chevy Chase is in the news right now. He did that documentary and everybody's bashing on him.
I haven't seen that.
I had a couple of interactions with Chevy.
Yeah.
He was always really nice to me. He caught me and my buddy Phil smoking weed one time.
No way.
Walked in the back before we opened, like right as I was pulling the slide on a bong.
No way.
And he goes, man, this would be a really great place to smoke weed. And we all looked at each other like, oh shit, we're getting fired today. And he never narked on us. So I have something good. Cool. I have something good to say about him from that aspect. But yeah, man, in the, I don't know, 4 years that I was out there, I can say I only got starstruck one time. And that was when Robbie Marley, Bob Marley's like quiet son, you don't really hear anything about. Mm-hmm. He was out riding motorcycles and stopped by and was buying a Camelback. And again, sometimes when people hand you a black Amex card, they hand you their ID, just right alongside it. And I took his card and I freaking looked at his license, and I'm not lying, man. My hand started going, oh, because it was Robert Nesta Marley, Jr. on there. And I was just like, yo, dude. And at the time I had dreads and everything. And I'm like, yo, man, your dad's music meant so much to me, over my lifetime. We smoke weed in the back every single day after we close. Please stop by and smoke a bowl with us. And he was like, yeah, kid, all right, and then actually rode by and said hi to us as we were freaking smoking that afternoon.
That's awesome.
But yeah, in all the years that I was out there, that's the only time I got, just really starstruck, dude.
Wow. Seems like a pretty cool job.
Yeah, it was.
So you were just repairing these bikes?
Dude, I was a master mechanic. I hate saying master mechanic because everybody says master grower. I was a master mechanic. I built custom bikes that were fitted for people.
Wow. I
was a wheel smith, wheel master, so I can still build wheels like from the hub, spokes, rim up.
Is that right?
And then that brought me out here to Colorado in the late 90s. Came out here to work for Schwinn and Yeti and a few companies like that. And then ultimately I worked for a shop called The Fix in Boulder, which was part of the Maverick factory, Maverick bicycles at the time, which was Paul Turner, who invented the Rock Shock, suspension fork for everybody. Mm-hmm. We had this insane set of dirt jumps out behind the shop. So that was what The Fix was kind of known for. We were the first BMX and downhill bike specific shop to specialty shop to open up. And yeah, I sold so much weed out of that place, so, yeah, man. And then at some point, I went back to school for welding, metallurgy, wanted to be a frame builder, did a little bit of an apprenticeship for frame building. And that was right around 2007, 2008 when Colorado really started looking at, possibility. Medical had been medical here since 2000.
Okay.
And before that, it was just decriminalized. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I got here in the late 90s, I set up a garden and really was growing for myself and some of the guys at the bike shop. And then over a couple of years, we started online. There was a group called Devil's Harvest Crew, and the Devil's Harvest Crew originally was 4 dudes who were online buddies, who grew, who all had unique genetics, and we would just trade them through the mail. At a time when it was really illegal. No one was really talking about sending genetics through the mail. You might buy some seeds here and there, but clones had this mythology around them about how careful you had to be with them and how much light they had to have. And we kind of disproved that, something could be in the mail for 3 days and survive,
really?
Make it from Colorado to California, California to Colorado, Colorado to the East Coast, So in those early days of the Devil's Harvest Crew, we were just trading genetics that we had available to us and seeds that we cracked. But ultimately, having those genetics allowed you to offer them into already established old clone lines from specific areas and then bring those genetics into that circle and then spread them out. So there was a web of really high-end clone-only varieties that were really locked up in certain areas, whether it was the sour diesel in New York or out here it was a blueberry, or, you know, California had hash plant and haze and stuff like that. And we were really just like openly trading them with the whole idea is, if I give you this clone, I know you're going to give it to like 5 of your buddies. So it's no longer captured. But I think ultimately the more access people had to more varieties, especially back then, it just made you want to grow.
Yeah.
You know, like when you have Baskin Robbins in front of you, you know, you want to try all 31 flavors. So yeah, that was kind of the open source of genetics. And from that, there was like coast to coast clones, and, you know, 10 other groups formed in the mid 2000s. And then ultimately in 2009, I opened a little shop here in Longmont in Boulder County called Stone Mountain. And it was like a catalog of all the genetics we had collected over the years. And it was funny as like the industry started to open up to see all the pockets of those genetics at the different phases. Maybe that was 2003 to 2005 or 2005 to 2007, like these genetics that everybody opened up. And you're like, man, you know, me and my boys passed that shit out. Like whether it was through Nederland or Ward or Boulder, Estes Park, Allen's, Park, you know, we were openly just handing those things out.
The first to ship clones.
Yeah. And then also, you know, we did it free.
Yeah.
You know, so when
spread the
when you hear people go like, oh, I spent $5,000 on a clone, it's like, dude, you had no reason to.
Yeah.
You know, me and my boys would give each other the clones, and then you'd be like, yo, first time you harvest that or second time you harvest that, give me a quarter. You know, like that's all I want back is just some weed from you to smoke it.
It's a good way to do it, having a network like that, sharing.
Yeah. And then ultimately, if you lose something or you throw something away that you want back, you know, you could usually source it and find it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
That's very cool.
Yeah, man.
So where did the Moonshine name come about in your life?
So it actually came from the bike shop days.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, man. One of my best friends in this world, who's the godfather to my kids.
Oh, wow.
He's a African American Muslim guy who was a militant, like almost like what was Farrakhan's freaking thing back in the day, Nation of Islam. Okay. Yeah, he was like a militant, like Nation of Islam type guy. And I was really like one of his first white friends that he was like, all right, there's a difference between white people and white folks, you know, and you know, he's one of my best buds, you know, freaking ever. And he always called me White Lightning, you know, and I would call him Chocolate Thunder. So we were Chocolate Thunder and White Lightning.
That's great.
In the bike shop. And still to this day, I call him Thunder, and he still calls me Lightning. But from that, you know, back in the day, you had a avatar and a username. You know, you never wanted it to be your name. Mm-hmm. Moonshine Man was just what I became online, and
kind of stuck for a bit.
Stuck forever. And then when I opened Stone Mountain, I actively tried to shed that because there was like the stigma of possibly bringing old charges onto yourself. You know, when you first were trying to become legit and go legal and all that type of stuff. And it took about a year before anybody put two and two together. And I can remember like the kid that came into the shop and was just like, so you're Moonshine. And I was like, huh? You know, they're like, where'd you hear that? No, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, you know, so-and-so down in Denver told me, you know, you're Moonshine. And I look at your stuff online and I look at this and you're definitely that dude, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So is that about the time when you started getting really serious about genetics?
Nah, I've been serious about genetics since probably 99.
99, okay.
Yeah, 99, you know, like 98, 99. Even when I was, you know, first growing out in New York, you know, it was just a few plants.
You've always been kind of really serious about it.
Yeah, you know, back then you'd buy seeds from Amsterdam, you know, or Vancouver even, but Cincy seeds or homegrown Fanta seeds, TH seeds. I mean, all those old school, you know, Amsterdam, Dutch genetics. And it was so hard to source them in the late 90s. Like, unless you really just growing bag seed or whatever, they were so expensive that I started crossing stuff immediately.
Okay.
Just so I would have seeds, you know, to grow. And then after a while, you know, you make a few crosses, you grow them out, and you're like, all right, those work, those don't work. That selection of a male was horrible. This selection of a male definitely was better. And then ultimately, when you start collecting like clone only varieties, especially back then, man, and we can get into it. The weed's different now. Like the weed from the late 90s, and it's funny because you always hear the old guys, like the Vietnam guys and all that, like, man, weed when I was young, you know, would like rip your head off and stuff. And, you know, you're like, oh, you're just this old guy, you know. But weed was different back then. And what I think was different was it might not have been as strong THC-wise or terpene-wise, but there was this, what we used to call the entourage effect, where it was way more medical. Really? You know, like really way more medical. There were strains that you could get back in the day. Maple leaf indica is a good one. That strain was so good for IBS and Crohn's and colitis and just stomach issues. It relaxed your gut so hard. I actually had friends that would shart themselves after smoking a bowl. You know, so like you would pull that out in a session and people were like, oh, I don't want to smoke that.
Damn.
You know, or they would get up and blow your bathroom up, you know, like immediately afterwards.
It was a medical thing.
So when, you know, people would talk about smoking weed for cancer or smoking weed for arthritis or whatever, like you could really get into specific strains. And to me nowadays, the weed's really strong, but it doesn't have that medicinal aspect to it, you know? And I have a bunch of theories on why that is, but you know, there's no scientific evidence. It's all just observation. And, you know, and again, like I've been hardcore smoker, weed smoker my whole life, never a tobacco smoker. And then from like 2017 to 2022, I was smoking like 3 to 5 grams of oil a day. So like you build up a crazy tolerance and, you know, you get to the point where you're like, I don't know if it's my tolerance or that just weed's not as good anymore. And in the last 2 years, I've really started taking breaks to just allow my tolerance to come down. And I'm constantly disappointed from, and I've always been disappointed from other people's weed, but I'm constantly disappointed from commercial weed at this point. That I really only source personal stuff from personal people.
Yeah.
You know?
What is so disappointing to you? All this hype weed.
No, don't get me wrong, man. You know, like from somebody who grew up with brickweed and beasters and struggling to find herb and, oh man, just to have access the way we do now and so many varieties and so many people doing the best they can. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, we killed the cartel's ability to import weed. Yeah, they pivoted hard and started flooding us with fentanyl and shit. But if you look at what that accomplishment was from imported cannabis, the industry killed that, you know, and that's a good thing. That's a really great thing, you know?
But I mean, like, even if weed looks good and kind of smells good, can it not be good for you? Like, what's the sprays people are spraying? Dude,
anything that's a spray pack, dude, I mean,
stay away from that.
And, you know, that stuff popped up like 2010. Immediately, there was a company called, I think it was called Tasty Puff or something back in the day. And it was like drops you could put within your, like,
concentrated. Was it like
synthetic? It was either, no, it was synthetic terpenes.
Oh, okay.
You know, just synthetic terpenes. To make it
just smell better.
Yeah, and I mean like fake blueberries, fake bubble gum.
Oh boy, and that gets smoked is probably not good for you.
Yeah, I can't imagine it is. You know, and it's wild to be at least knowledgeable enough and experienced enough in the past of, like, there used to be an Indiana bubble gum back in the day that tasted exactly like Bazooka Joe without having to put anything on it.
Wow.
My brother-in-law, who passed away a couple of years from lung cancer, I can remember, he was married to my oldest sister, who's an angel. Johnny was always a weed smoker and I never knew it. And dude, we butted heads hard for like years. And I always thought it was just, he had married my older sister and I had this, like I'm protective of my, sister. And then I realized like, nah, dude, he's just high all the time like me, And
imagine if you guys could go out in the garage and smoke together.
And bro, it happened when my dad passed away in 2003. I'd gone home for his funeral and I'd taken some joints, like packed up some joints and flew them on the plane home. And like I was about to sneak out of my sister's because I was staying with her. And Johnny was like, yo, dude, you look stressed. Because I was about to be. I was having to deal with my mom and my other sister and all the other family. You look stressed. Like, you want to go in the basement and smoke a joint? And I was like, dude, seriously? And then I'm like looking back at all his pictures and stuff. And I'm just like, dude, you're freaking high. Like you were high all these years and we never connected on that shit,
Oh man.
So we went down in his basement and he pulled out this freaking, sandwich bag that was rolled up and it looked like, and I'll say this a couple of times, but it looked like a dog turd. And I was just like, what is that? And he's like, oh man, this is that stuff that's on the cover of High Times. And I'm like, nah, man, that's like definitely not on the cover of High Times. And I was like, you want to smoke some good weed? Like, here's a joint of blueberry. Here's a joint of maple leaf. Here's a joint of Mr. Nice. And he was just like, how is this flavored like that? And it's like, that's how the weed tastes.
Wow.
And so at that point, I was able to introduce someone who had smoked a long time, but was smoking Alabama backyard bud or brick or whatever.
Damn.
And to educate him and then to connect with him on that way, I became like the coolest little brother-in-law that he could have, he could have ever imagined. And then as our company has become what it is, like he was so proud of me, for all the rest of his life.
That's amazing.
And, when he got initially diagnosed with stage 4. We put him on RSO, and we knocked it back to where he lived. They'd given him like 6 or 8 months. He lived like 3.5, 4 more years.
Wow. That stuff really does work.
Yeah. Before it just, stormed him, stormed the gates.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, like I look at what the industry is now and it's a bunch of, hyped, ego driven. And, I've been guilty of that for a lot of my life, ego driven of just trying to find your place and make sure that you had enough and all that. And, it's all marketing at this point instead of just, being something you can be proud of.
Yeah. What's rare anymore?
I think Tommy Boy, there's a line where it's like, you can put a turd in a shiny box, but it's still a turd, and that's a way I look at a lot of stuff nowadays. There's beautiful shiny packaging, but ultimately you get into the, inside of it. And it's like, yes, that's way better than anything I grew up with, but it's not that 3%. And the 3% of weed smokers are the ones that have the knowledge of what good really is. I just don't think people know what good is anymore.
Yeah. It is packaging and it's branding and it's hype. And,
and I've been guilty of that. My logo is one of the, recognized logos.
Yeah.
As I've become wiser in the last 5 years, I definitely realized a lot of that was ego driven and a panic for into my life. My dad only lived to be 56. My granddad only made it to like 62 on my dad's side. And
wow.
I think having cancer and the original COVID and all that type of stuff, man, like ultimately you stop talking and you start listening to what you're being told.
Yeah.
And that's
perspective shifts.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am now. I try to do a lot more listening.
Are you still like hunting down strains and plants these days?
Bro, I'm back.
Always.
I'm actually back to what I really love, which is growing for myself, my personal taste, my friend's taste. I was having a talk with a buddy the other day, and he was like, "Man, when was the last time you sold like personal weed?" I was like, 2009, 2010, you know, and then it became commercial weed, you know, and I was never responsible for the growing aspect of it. I always had an apprentice or a worker or something that I was trying to pass that knowledge and I look where some of those guys have ended up now, and I'm really proud of them, you know, because they're running some of the biggest facilities and most respected facilities within the country. And, you know, from a dad, man, that's freaking awesome. You know, like I don't consider those guys my kids, but in a way, yeah, they're my weed kids, you know? So I'm back to just breeding stuff that I like to smoke, which is lemons and real gas and
real gas.
Yeah. You know, people say gas nowadays. I'm like, you mean like a fart gas? Cause that's not gas, dude. Like gas was when you popped a freaking can of fresh tennis balls or the vapors that would come off when you were like fueling diesel or something, like, you know, not just like, that smells like gas. Like it was gas, you know?
That's really cool. So you like lemons and gas.
Yeah, and then hazes. But I don't have anxiety and stuff like that anymore. I don't like, I have a weird mitral valve in my heart, and anything that picks my heart rate up, it just worries me. So I'm very cautious about what sativas I smoke, you know, nowadays. And if something really gets on me, I might not smoke that much of it, you know, later. But you know, I'm really a flower guy at this point. The last 2 years, mainly flowers, a little bit of rosin. If it's concentrate, I love dry sift. Dry sift all the way, you know.
It's like bubble hash? Or?
Well, you know, bubble hash, I think you had Mark on here, right? Yeah. So Mark's been my buddy for 26, 27 years. Wow. You know, he developed those bubble bags.
Yeah.
Originally from that was Mila with her water hash bags and all that.
Story. Yeah, it was great.
And I had one of the very first sets of bubble bags that he sold, you know, back in the day. And, you know, it was always kind of a means to an end. Back when it was illegal, you could be charged with whatever weight you're holding on to. And that could be root balls, leaf material, like all that.
Wow.
Cops away everything. And you're like, you know, I had 2 pounds of weed, but you got charged with 15 because they weighed all your dirt and your rock wool and the leaves and stems and all that shit. So it was always like a risk to hang on to leaf material to run it. But the bubble bags were great because like you get that stuff dry, throw it in there, water hash it. All of a sudden you have another product that you could either smoke or give to your friends or sell or whatever. And varying quality depending on how hard you agitated it and all that. But from a water standpoint, water is a solvent. It's a natural solvent. And if you ever look at the water after you run water hash, after the leaf material, there's always this film, you know, this glossy film that looks like oil on water type of thing. And I always knew you were washing something off, you know. So even though bubble bags and water hash is freaking excellent, you always were losing a little something that was there in the dry sift, because in the dry sift, you're not washing any of that off, you know. And the purer you could get that dry sift, 95% heads, 98% heads, 99% heads. Man, some of the experiences sometimes, like I can remember smoking a bowl of dry sift with Soma one time. And I felt like I started to levitate off my chair.
Is that right?
I was sitting in a stool and I grabbed the stool real quick and he was like, bro, are you okay? And I was like, was I floating like a foot off this fucker? He was like, no, man, that's just the hash.
Just the sift, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
But going back to why I consider the weed not as good, even though it's stronger now. Used to, you would smoke joints with people or bong hits with people of just flower. And we'll say pre-2015.
Okay.
And dudes would just drop. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of a white out or a whitey or fish flops.
I've seen it.
Or people would just straight drop sometimes from flower. Bong hit of flower.
I haven't seen that too much, but from their first dab, I've seen people like
get sweaty and freaking break down. Yeah. But nowadays dudes are smoking like 2-3 gram joints with hash in them.
Yeah, hash holes, big 2 gram
to their self. And I always say, man, if that was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that joint would get passed with 5 people. 2 of them would black out.
Yeah.
One guy would lock the door and be looking out the windows. One guy would go like completely empty your fridge. And then you'd be sitting there with a half burned joint going like, what the fuck, you know? So the weed is different, you know? So, all experience and anecdotal evidence. I don't have any proof, but just from what I've seen, bro.
There's so many different variables with all the different weeds, and it hits everybody different too.
Yeah. But yeah, those first dabs of people and watching them break out in the sweat and go down are pretty funny.
Yeah, I remember we just talked about the first dab story with Marcus the other day. So where did you come up with the name Rare Dankness?
When I was doing Stone Mountain, I was doing, at that point, it went from Moonshine seeds to Stone Mountain seeds. Very short period. I had this kid come in from, I want to say it was Durango or Grand Junction. So he made the 7-hour, 8-hour drive from the other side of the state to Longmont. And I mean, we didn't do any advertising. It might have been little weed mounts, mostly word of mouth. This kid walked in, he's just like, dude, I drove 8 hours to get over here. Let me see your weed. And he came back in the back because we had the offices with the display, so it wasn't out in the front, if you looked in the windows. Trying to be respectful back then. And came back and looked at the weed, smelled the jars, and was just like, bruh, do you know how rare it is to find this type of dankness in the state? And I was like, fuck, Rare Dankness. That would either be a really good strain name or a brand name or a seed name or something. And over a couple of days, it like banged around, just in my head, Rare Dankness.
Yeah.
And I told a couple of friends, and they were like, that shit's stupid. You know, oh, it could be Rarely Dankness. And you're like, whatever, bro. That's, to go from, Ralph Lauren, he made Polo. So you like, ultimately, if I wanted to do something with my name, I need to have another brand that's just like, and over my year, over my lifetime of doing business, I've had a couple of brands. Some of them didn't work. Some of them did, but ultimately, that was a really smart move in the aspect of like perfect timing, get in at the right time, solidify that aspect of legacy. But internally, I had a lot of issues with it. I was always an underground grower. I was always somebody that could go to jail for this. I never did this to be popular. I was never a popular guy online. I always not fought with people, but like I'm set in my ways. I know what works for me. I know I try a bunch of different stuff. So I always had a varying opinion, for people. So when Rare Dankness really took off, like really, really took off, and I was like going through some shit at that point because I was going through cancer and, surgery and chemo and all that. And you was really, at that point, I was a 35-year-old guy. You question, how long do I have here? How much work can I get done? My kids were really young. You get this like timeline, expiration date feeling. Yeah. And at that time I had I told you a little while about it. We'll get into it a little later, but I had like a really strong experience that, just really made me focus on getting that business created and going forward and trying to educate people and help people.
Was this in the hospital?
Yeah.
Experience?
Yeah.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah, man. So after going through chemo, that shit wrecks your body.
Yeah.
I was like a 220-pound, strong 220-pound guy. If you look at pictures of me back then, like I was, I could carry a deer out of the woods by myself after, hunting. Not in one shot, but I could do it over a couple trips without needing help or any of that.
Yeah.
After I had chemo, that stripped me down to 155.
Holy moly.
And I mean, like my pancreas shut down. I started having like a heart murmur with like a weird beat, you know, like it would go from beating this way, like duka, 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 especially at altitude. You know, you go up to 14, up a 14 or something. It would go from duka, duka, duka to like out the side, baka, 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 baka.
Wow.
And you're like, man, am I having a heart attack? Especially you smoke some weed or you're stressed. It would just be like, baka, baka, baka. So I went in to the doctor's cardiologist at that time up in Boulder. And they were like, you know, we need to do a femoral arteriogram where they go in through you put you out, go in through your femoral artery in your leg up into your heart, mess around with your heart a little bit to try to figure out what nerve bundle is creating this weird heartbeat. And in doing so, they stop your heart sometimes. And they stopped my heart, unaware to me. You know, I'm just going into surgery, going into a procedure, coming out of a procedure. I come out of this procedure and I'm just like, man, I just had the weirdest dream because the nurse is standing over me. And she's like, well, you know, tell me about it. And she's like pulling up my hospital gown and I got this big oval burn on my chest. Wow. And I'm like looking at it. I'm like, what the hell is that? And she's like, oh, they had to restart your heart.
Oh.
And I was like, man, I just had this crazy dream. Like I I like floated out of my body in the operating room. I floated out of my body. I passed through this like white screen, the veil as we know it now. I passed through it. I can see myself floating up. And then I'm sitting on the porch of a beautiful southern home, big wraparound porch. I mean, like think Forrest Gump house, you know, like beautiful. I can see cypress trees with Spanish moss and can feel the humid air on my skin. And I turn and I'm like sitting in a rocking chair and I turn and there's a lady sitting beside me who looks exactly like my sisters or my aunt on my dad's side, but none of them because they're all alive. And it wasn't them. She looked different, but she had the dark hair, the reach eyes, you know, she looked like somebody.
Wow,
you know,
someone related.
Somebody I was related to. And we had this just conversation about driving life and, you know, mistakes you make and how you have to like, not necessarily repent, but own those mistakes and admit to those mistakes and do everything in your power, never to make those again. And, you know, we talked about family and just how beautiful the world and everything is. And then she goes, you know, I really enjoyed this time, honey, but you're not here with us for long. So I'll see you later. And then I woke up in the hospital bed with the nurse standing over me. And she's like, we're conversing. And I'm just like, I'm telling her the dream. And she looks at me. I mean, I'm not even lying. She's like, that was the DMT draining out of your brain.
Are you serious?
And I was just like, whoa, what the fuck, you know? And I never looked at that as like I died. It was just this crazy freaking dream. But in that moment,
your heart was stopped when this happened.
Yeah. And for like 2 minutes.
Jesus.
You know? But in that moment of waking and realization, like you immediately move into that. Okay, I gotta fix everything that's wrong. I gotta fucking be good for my kids. I gotta be the dad that I never had really. I'm gonna work my ass off. I'm gonna create this brand specifically for them. You know, if they come up and they want to do this, like it's theirs. And you know, there was so much just like going forward. But again, it was like against being this underground grower and having anonymity, not being anonymous, anonymity. Yeah. And, you know, so there's this yin and yang struggle in those 2010 or 2011-ish to really 2020. It was just drive and get shit done.
And your hospital episode was in 2010?
Yep.
Okay.
2011, like right at the end of
you into overdrive.
Yeah, man. So if you look at if you look at that rocket arc that rare dankness had in the beginning, that was really expiration based life expectancy. Wow. I got to get shit done.
Driven.
And it's a horrible thing, but people who go through cancer, it's a fairly common experience to have everyone around you. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but really everyone around you, when you get sick like that, they look at you completely different. They have this like sympathy or pity or anger. Like I had so many friends that were just like, dude, I don't want to see you die. Like I can't even have this friendship anymore because like I don't want to see you die. Wow. And then I had a couple friends that were like, bro, I want half your company. Like if I'm gonna help you do something, like I want half the shit. And you're just like, dude, I've already put in the legwork, whatever. But ultimately, cancer really shows you who's true in your life, who's there for you.
Wow.
And I hear those experiences because a lot of people come to me for weed advice with cancer. And, how did you get through it and whatever? And it's like, man, having someone there who can look past all the mental breakdown that you go through, because it does. It tears you up, especially as a 34, 35-year-old guy. You're like, I'm impervious. Nothing's going to freaking chink my arm or, And then you're like, oh shit, I could die. I could die. And then, that not letting death drive you, but you acknowledge that experience, And so yes, from 2010, 2011 to really, 2017, 2020, man, I was going balls to the wall.
Every moment
of my life. And that was like traveling as much as I can, spending absolutely as much time with my kids, like really trying to help the Colorado industry develop into something. I helped with River Rock, Green Man, Pink House, Southwest Alternative Care, which became Seed and Smith. I mean, like there's so many foundational companies that were here in Colorado in the old days that I can look back and go, yeah, I spent 6 months or a year, helping those guys.
That's amazing.
Develop into that.
Wow.
All the while doing the rare dankness stuff.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, I started building the big facility in Denver.
Beautiful spot.
Yeah, and at the time, most big grows were just basement grows made bigger. Mm-hmm. And people ask me like, your accomplishments in life. And I'm like, always at this point, my biggest accomplishments are my kids.
Yeah.
Hendricks and Warbrook.
Yeah.
But if you look back in history of the weed stuff, the facility I built here in Colorado was the blueprint of a facility built completely ground up that was modern and technologically advanced and workflow thought out. And really everything that's been built in the last 10 years from that moment in some way was influenced by that design.
You set a precedent for sure.
And either I showed people, hey, consultants, everybody, when I was building it, come on in, let me show you what I'm doing. And these are the reasoning behind what I'm doing. And I showed it online. I never hid any of that stuff. So, that's a cool thing to be able to say, say like, really like that was the blueprint. And I'm proud. Like I see so many beautiful freaking facilities nowadays and it's like, yeah, it looks like mine. That looks like mine.
You were the first.
That looks like mine.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Wow. That was amazing, man.
Yeah, bro.
You've been through quite a lot, man.
Yeah. Life is a journey, dude.
Yeah.
And it's
look at it.
It's constantly teaching you things, and either you learn or you just repeat that stupid shit over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Oh man. So you've done a lot of traveling around the world.
Yep.
How do you, how is cannabis different from country to country? Like, are there?
I think overall,
I mean, legal, like the legal ones or semi-legal.
That's one of the kind of the beautiful things with the U.S. is, even though it's draconian laws for so long, as a person that's been about states' rights and seeing what different states have done opposed to the federal, you know, it's nice. It started to really shape and change the laws in Spain, the laws in Germany, and not necessarily to the point where it's like it's legal, but like, again, you're not going to get as much trouble as you used to. And that's always a benefit.
Yeah.
know?
Is your brand out worldwide too? Yeah. Did you ever imagine it would be global like this?
No.
No.
Yeah, no.
When you were just starting, you didn't think
No, I mean, I lived in Valencia, Spain in 2012.
Oh.
Like for a full year, I lived there with the family.
Wow. How old were your kids?
2012, Hendrix would have been 11. Warbrook would have been 4.
What an experience. What brought you out there?
The laws here in Colorado at that time, the medical like regulations were shaping up and all that. And just for like a brief period, they made seeds illegal.
Oh. And
you were still kind of allowed under the caregiver model, but man, I didn't want to be like in a kind of a gray area or whatever. And in Spain at that time, you could have 12 plants outdoors, be your own plants, you know, and cops aren't going to really mess with you, you know. And even if they messed with you, it was more of an extortion mess with you instead of going to jail.
Okay.
So I had a couple friends that were there, and I went to visit them, internet friends. I went to visit them. And you ever be any place where you're just like, I belong here?
Yeah.
And Valencia was one. Like I went to Barcelona and Madrid and Malaga and all over, and you're kind of like, you know, Spain's cool. And then I went to Valencia, and within like 5 minutes of walking around Valencia, it was just like, I want to die here. You know,
Wow.
like this is where I was meant to be. This is where I want to be in retirement. Like it was just perfect. So packed the families up, took them over there. Homeschool Hendrix.
Oh, really?
Warbrick wasn't.
Did Pamela do that, or did? Okay,
Oh yeah, Pamela did that.
What's that like? Is that pretty easy?
It was nice over there. You know,
Yeah.
like if they're studying art, you put them on a plane, took them to the Louvre.
Oh wow! You go see the actual art you learn about.
Yeah, if they were studying, you know, archaeological stuff, you took them to see ancient ruins around Spain. You know,
amazing.
Cadiz and Chatava and stuff like that, where there's giant castles and stuff. And I mean, like that experience is way more important than just reading that shit in a book.
Yeah, did they love that?
Yeah.
The kids?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've been really thinking about doing that for like a gap year with the kids.
Dude, one of my favorite memories of Warbrook, and I mean, Spain's very family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Used to, you didn't really see a lot of homeless people there, because if you became homeless or in need, somebody in your family, an aunt, uncle, sister, somebody would take you in, you know? And they're really big on like grandparents with grandkids type thing. And growing up, that was really important to me. And unfortunately, you know, my kids have a great grandparents on one side, but the other side's always just kind of had conditions, and I hate that shit, you know? But we were over there one time, and Warbrick was really, you know, little. He's 4. He's roaming around. And we went across a street. You know, everybody's waiting across the street. And he wasn't even paying attention, man. He just like reaches up his hand across the street. And this old lady that was standing beside him, this old Spanish lady, freaking took his hand and just like walked across the street with him. And he's like 2/3 of the way across the street before he like looked up. And then he's like, oh God, you're not, you know, like, you're not my mom, you know? But that's how they were. They, you know, they see their grandkids, they tassel their hair, and, you know,
that's nice.
It's just a beautiful thing, man.
Is that still the plan, to retire out there maybe?
I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or die out there or whatever.
Yeah.
Spend the golden years out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
Valencia is high on the list. Costa Rica was really, really high on the list for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I was right at COVID. I was about to buy a house down there.
Really?
And then it became Florida.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just like, shit, I got to go to Panama now or something, you know?
Wow.
But yeah, as soon as they started paving the highways and shit, like
in Costa Rica?
Yeah, it became Florida. Yeah. So, but no, I think we've been to a little over 50 countries, and the kids have been to like 35 of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a life.
Yeah.
That's how you learn the most, man. Just getting out and seeing
absolutely,
it, experiencing it.
Yeah. I mean, I took the kids to Africa a couple of years ago, and, you know, we see we're very fortunate what we have in the U.S. And you see poverty, you know, when you travel, but like abject poverty, like in the rural villages of Africa, man, that totally can change a kid's perspective on stuff.
Yeah.
You know, my boys love video and everything, got their phones out all the time, TikToking, you know, and all that. And I can remember driving through a few villages and them just putting their phones down.
Wow.
And being like, yeah, I don't want to video that, you know, like that's eye-opening, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys see like the big five out there?
Saw everything except rhino.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's,
what part of Africa were you in?
we were in South Africa, but like all over South Africa. Like we landed in Cape Town. We went up to Frankfurt or whatever, the wine country for the ladies, you know. Yeah. And then we went to Kruger, which is all the way on the other side, which is the giant national park that's like big as Rhode Island, where you see everything, leopards and lions and warthogs and elephants and baby elephants and I mean everything.
It's amazing.
And usually you can see rhinos, but we didn't on that trip. Yeah, man. And we were there for almost a month.
Yeah.
And it was it was a life-changing experience.
I got to get out to Africa one day.
Yeah.
I was just there's a resort out there that likes my necklaces, and they wanted me to put some in their gift shop, and they offered to put us up for a few days. So
do
I might
it.
check
Do
that
it.
out.
Do it. Yeah.
Do you smoke? You smoke hash or?
I do, but it's dry January, man.
Oh, dry January?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been alcohol free for 2 years. Come March.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Man.
And,
feels great, doesn't it?
Yeah, dude. And I was never a big alcohol drinker. Mm-hmm. I always say celebration and vacation, but I kind of I semi-retired in 2022 and
celebrating every week.
Dude, celebrating and vacations every week,
every day.
So, yeah. So
yeah, no, even if you're not,
but please.
Yeah, no, you know what? I wouldn't. I don't think I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
no,
I'll do dry January, whatever date it is, 15th or. Yeah. So, what regions do you think are producing some of the most insane genetics right now globally?
Oh man.
Or that are being slept on, I
always say the U.S. has some of the best genetics. There's a really hard trend right now of just hype strain on hype strain.
Skittles.
There's a million of them.
Yeah.
But hype strain on hype strain, feminized to feminized. And what we're slowly seeing with that is, I don't want to call it a degradation of the genetics, but there's definitely some bottlenecks that are happening within those genetic lines. So again, where I say like the weed is really strong now, but it just doesn't have that depth. Really terpy now doesn't have that depth of where you smoke a couple puffs and you're high for 3-4 hours before you're like, ooh, I want to smoke some more weed. It's just like dab after dab after dab of just flavor of flavor of flavor.
Yeah.
Fast high, fast come down.
Yeah.
We referred to it in the olden days as the virgin high. And it was like the first time you smoked a new strain, dude, you got really high all of a sudden and then it faded off. But like once you got a quarter pound of that and you burned your way through it, you're like, yeah, that shit didn't get me high.
Exactly.
So, U.S. is always good. Spain has always been good. Netherlands has always been good, but Netherlands was always good because of what Spain did. You see, what U.S. was given into the Netherlands. Great stuff has come out of Canada. I've been waiting for like crazy Thai varieties and stuff to come out of like Thailand.
Yeah, because it's legalized there now.
Yeah, man, they flip-flopped on that a little bit. And again, man, they sourced a lot of just Western genetics instead of like, let's grow a 130-day Mekong haze or, something crazy from Cambodia or Vietnam,
Yeah.
Because hype sells, people see strains online, TikTok, whatever, and they're like, I want to try that,
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
I'm boring him.
No. Not at all.
We got to talk about cooler shit, man.
No, I'm absolutely not. That's great. I'm just going to grab a water real quick.
Go for it.
Okay. Life is hard. Getting good weed shouldn't be.
World Needs Cannabis makes it incredibly easy. They have a hand-selected menu, and it's shipped discreetly to your door. If you've been hankering to take a load off, this is how adults buy weed now. Go to worldneedscannabis.com, use code STASH25 for 25% off your order. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed. This episode is brought to you by Puffco, the gateway device that still earns respect. Puffcos are a great entry-level dab device. It's not some corny beginner toy. It actually rips. It actually tastes good. It actually respects your rosin. All you do is set it, forget it, and get high. Go to puffco.com, grab yourself one today.
Possibly.
Interesting. How do you know so much about all this?
Yeah.
So you're taking a little break from dry January?
Yeah. Just to let my tolerance freaking get down a little bit.
That's awesome.
I got some really good weed I'm sitting on right now, and my birthday is the 30th.
Oh, really?
I'll be 51.
Hell yeah.
And we're going to get toe up on the 30th. So, yeah, man.
Get scared high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So,
is that from like everything? Like, do you do mushrooms at all?
Yeah.
Is that during this dry January or no?
Dude,
is it just dry from everything?
Honestly, like I had a couple of really, really strong psychedelic experiences in the last couple of years.
Really?
And yeah, man, like, you know, they talk about ego death and all that type of stuff. And
is this from DMT?
Mushrooms, LSD, mescaline, DMT.
Wow.
I mean,
okay.
You know, now that a lot of the stuff is legal here in Colorado or decriminalized here in Colorado, I don't know, being, I guess, a piece of the counterculture, you know, a lot of things just happen to be given to you. I mean, it's kind of like being a, you know, rock star, glass blower, or whatever. And you go places and people are like, let me give you weed or whatever.
Yeah.
When the mushroom thing kind of blew up here, man, it was like all of a sudden everybody and their moms were, everybody and their mom were growing mushrooms. And, you know, so I'll go back. So after the cancer thing, it really crushed my, I don't want to say my happiness. It put me into a funk. And I guess it was that expiration aspect of it where I kind of had like a severe depressive episode, you know, like immediately after. And I sat on a counselor's couch twice a week for like 7 years, you know, really just trying to figure out, like grappling with the instant success. Well, it wasn't instant, but grappling with the success of the business and the changing laws and that anonymous aspect. And, you know, just, dude, it was a constant struggle. And I can look back at interviews and stuff like that and just being like, bro, I was unhappy. Like I was an unhappy guy, even though everything was right in my life. And, you know, they put me on a really low dose of antidepressants, but I was on antidepressants from like 2013 to right around 2020.
Wow.
You know? And then in early 2020, I caught like the OG strain of COVID that was like going around, and like that shit nearly killed me.
Yeah. Before the vaccines.
Yeah. Before all the vaccines and all that. And
I got a case of that too.
Dude, that shit hammered me. I mean, my skin turned gray. I didn't leave my bed for like 17 days.
Really?
I kept the door shut. I mean, I never developed the lung breathing stuff except when I would get up and walk around or whatever, but it high fever, constant sweats. I mean, I would lay on like a beach towel and soak a beach towel through like 6 times a day.
Holy moly.
Ultimately at the end of that, I was so sick. I had, again, whether it was a hallucination or whether it was real, I'm laying in bed one day and I'm just like, I don't know, I felt like giving up. Like I've been so freaking sick. And in that OG strain, like you would get better for a couple days and then it would just hit you again. And you get better a couple days, like 4 or 5 days later, and then it would just like drag you back down worse. And I'm laying in bed, and I mean, like my kids are sending me text messages like, "Dad, you got to get through this and fight this," and it was rough. I'm laying in bed one day, and this ball of light, I mean, it looked like a sun, crackling, freaking arcs coming off of it, appeared in the bedroom. And it moved really zigzaggedy and around the room. And it went like around the bed, where I'm sitting. And again, like I felt like it was a presence, and it was like, don't give up. And the minute I was just like, God, I got to get better. These like blue rippling waves of light, almost like clouds, came out of the ceiling and like washed down over me. And the next day I started getting better. And again, I tell Pamela this shit and she's just like, I don't want to hear that. Like,
what do you think that was?
I don't fucking know, dude. Whether it was my granddad or what, like it was something that was just like, and I love my cat. So like I'm on my 5th or 6th life as a cat, So like at that moment, it was like
healing energy,
bro. It was like, I gotta get better. And not just like get better from this, like I gotta change everything. So I really started looking at that point. I had a couple friends before this was like mushrooms and stuff in Colorado. I had this friend out in Oregon that was like, dude, I'm growing like 6 strains of mushrooms. I'm doing these like gel caps for microdosing. Like, let me get you some and see if it helps you. And over like a 6-month period, I microdosed every day, every other day, like 3 times a week with a 0.3, 0.6, depending on the day. In that
range.
Yeah. And not enough to make you trip, but enough to just like turn the color up on the room, turn the brightness up in the room. But again, dude, it rewired my brain in such a way that I became extremely positive. I became extremely empathetic, like empathy just overflowing. I've never been a guy that likes to cry or any of that shit. Well, starting then, I started crying, and, my kids get me choked up all the freaking time, and I hate it because, like, I never saw my dad cry, and I'm always like, oh, my kids think I'm a pussy,
Oh, man,
but like I really became aware at how much psychedelics, beyond just like, man, have a good time without hurting yourself type of shit. Man, there's really medical application of these products.
Were you still doing the antidepressants at the time you were experimenting with them?
No.
No.
People were like, I wasn't on SSRIs or anything, but like, you just shouldn't do anything together that screws with the serotonin and endorphins and all that in your brain. So I cold turkeyed it, which is like the worst shit you could do.
Oh, really?
And really, I should have had like a serious episode, but like I lifted myself out. And, over that time, like, again, like all these other little psychedelics are coming in, and, maybe with friends, you had one night at a party, you freaking, macro dose instead of micro dose. And that stuff really tends to knock your ego down and allow you to look at yourself and look at your life and the people around you and develop what's really important and change your core values. And I mean, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, it really does.
And during that period, again, I never went out looking for it, but like, little DMT ends up in your possession, just enough for like a blast off. And, my very first time puffing DMT, I had like a full out of body experience. Like I lifted out of myself and watched myself go up into an astral plane. And immediately I'm in this circular room that had like shadow people on the walls, like wacky wavy arm people, type of stuff. and there's a fire in the middle of the freaking room, and this old wrinkly Native American lady. And I mean, I can feel the fire crackling and shit.
Oh.
And she took me by both shoulders with her hands, and I fully felt it. And she goes, "You got to give up. Like, you got to let shit go." And immediately I'm like back into my living room. I started out upstairs, so I have no idea how I got downstairs.
Really?
But immediately I'm like sitting downstairs, the fireplace is on, and I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? And I'm like texting my buddy who, gave me this, and he's like, yeah, that was a soothsayer type of experience, not just a blast off and meeting an entity type of stuff. Like, that was a direct meeting with either your conscience or your spiritual advisor or whatever you want to call it. But it was like such a strong thing, it reinforced almost that experience that was on the operating table, 10 years ago, 10 years of that.
Yeah.
12 years at that point, I guess it was. And, so again, not something you want to do every single day, but it was one of those experiences where it was like,
did it stick with you for a long time? To this day, it seems like.
The way I describe it, it was like it opened a door in my brain, and that door allowed a higher level of consciousness that not made me more intelligent, but made me more empathetic, have empathy towards my fellow man, really killed the anger within me. I mean, killed all the anger within me. But at the same time, it changed that drive that had been rare dankness to where I acknowledged to myself, like, okay, I've built this. I still have ownership in House of Dankness. I own 100% of rare dankness. I still own 40% of the House of Dankness, but like I had to let that go. Let somebody else take it over. I've delegated now. I realized I was walking around that warehouse for a couple of years, really just, I described it as being a disappointed dad, which is horrible for a boss to be disappointed dad. But it was because my guys, my workers and everything, they were growing fire weed, dude. I mean, better weed than you really see on the commercial scene. But at the same time, in my heart, I knew it wasn't what I was considering great. It wasn't that weed from 2010 prior, and it wasn't because it wasn't grown properly or grown with love or any of that. It's just when you start getting that big, and it's not you're cutting corners, but ultimately you have employees to pay and taxes to pay and bills to pay, and you're willing to allow things, not bad things, but you're allowed to accept a lower level of standards than you would if it was just like, nah, I'm that's for me.
Yeah.
I'm not paying a mortgage with it or anything. Like, that's mine. And that internal struggle again, I realized it was affecting my workers, because sometimes I'd be like, dude, like what the fuck, man? Like, we're growing great weed. You never buy flower from your own grow. You're only getting concentrates and stuff. And it's like, flower's not that great. Even though every day you're getting hundreds of customers that are like, this is the best weed I've ever seen. I'm coming from out of state. This is the best weed I've ever seen. And you're like, yeah, but it's good, but it's 80%.
Wow.
It's not the 95, And that struggle and being able to accept that is killing that ego. Killing that ego to be able to, I think Terrence McKenna said, finding the answer is easy. Facing the answer is really hard. Mm-hmm. And at that point, through my psychedelic experiences, I was able to start really facing some of the internal struggles that I was having. And, yeah, man. So, over the last couple of years, like, I definitely don't smoke that shit often, but anybody that asks me about it or asks me about going to do ayahuasca in South America or whatever, I'm like, do it. Like, that shit can change your life. Mm-hmm. To a point that I have a couple of friends that adamantly won't do it because they're like, I'm so focused on making money for retirement. I don't want that shit to go, yeah, you've worked your whole life. You're a fool, have that realization.
Oh man, I kind of have a fear about doing it.
And you should. Like, anybody that's looking
once
at that,
see it, there's no going back,
again, you can,
but it's, so many positive experiences.
You could not listen to what's being told. And a lot of people, the first few times they go into those, even like on a hard acid trip or whatever, bro, you want to ask all these questions. You know, like, what is the meaning of life? What is my purpose and all that?
Yeah.
And honestly, if you just shut up, it's in here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those answers in here, and it's just the universe freaking reflecting that back to you.
So did it allow you to kind of remove yourself from like holding such high standards at your business?
And I still have those high standards for myself in ways,
mm-hmm.
but I'm way more forgiving in that aspect. And I understand, like, and I'm going to get shit for this. Really what the weed industry is right now. It's a replacement for the brickweed and the beasters. And dude, you guys are doing great weed. I fucking love it and all that. But that's what it is, dude.
Because we're so spoiled. It's come that long that's the standard, you know.
Yeah. So it's way better than beasters and brick. Don't get me wrong. But it's the straight replacement for that. And the smoker, that's your typical dispensary smoker, is your 3-2 beer drinker. You know, your 3-2 beer drinker. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's not going to homebrew, that just wants to go out and buy a 6-pack or whatever. You know, ultimately there will be a 3%. Right now, it's tough to be that 3%, because you want to pay your bills and you want to pay that grow back and all that. And, there's not enough of a national market. The smoker has to become more educated. They have to become more discerning. And again, I always refer back to the alcohol industry. After Prohibition ended, like in the 37 or whatever it was like 40 years to like 77 before microbrews became a thing.
Is that right?
And before high-end whiskeys, like small batch producers, became a thing.
Oh, really?
For that 40 years, man, it was still just mass-produced stuff to meet that demand that the consumer wanted.
There was no like 18-year...
No 18-year age stuff or pappies or any of that type of shit. And people, I mean, I've had arguments where like, well, you know, whiskey's all about its aging. And it's like, aging's a byproduct. Really what drives that cost is during the aging, the whiskey becomes less, or whatever that alcohol during that aging process becomes less, because in that barrel, it's evaporating constantly. So if you fill a barrel and it's flipped on its side, after the first year, it goes down like, you know, this much. And they call it the angel share, you know, in whiskey. It's like what evaporates out into the wood and all that. Well, that angel share gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And once you reach like a 23 or a 15 or whatever, man, there's only a tiny bit in that barrel. So, yes, it's been aged, but it's that scarcity that's driving that price.
Wow.
And a long time ago, like when Popcorn Sutton, who was a famous
I've made a piece tribute to him.
Yeah, so when Popcorn was Popcorn Underground, not before he became a distiller and was on Moonshiners and all that shit. Like, he was hardcore. He went out against the police and burned his place down. I mean, like, you read the story of Popcorn, he was badass. But if you could get Popcorn's Moonshine back in the 70s or 80s, you paid a premium for that. And it wasn't because it was just popcorn. It was scarce, and it was from a legendary, you know, recipe and a legendary maker. And ultimately, weed will become that as well. It'll become like these brands that have been around and these growers that have been around, and more than just hype. It'll have that depth of knowledge and depth of experience and depth of the level of what it should be. Yeah. And that comes through time, you know. Unfortunately, I'm here in the beginning of this. I get to see it birth and all that. I won't be long enough. You know, I probably won't be alive long enough to see that. Hopefully my kids at some point decide this maybe is something they want to do, or business in and use our name, or, you know, our family name or my name or whatever. But right now, like, I wouldn't want my kids in the weed industry. Like, I want them to go forth and have experiences and get an education and something grander. And then ultimately, if they want to come back to weed because that's what dad built, you know, all for it. But there was a time where I really was building this brand for them. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know, screw that. I want them to be their own people have their own destiny. I don't want them tied into
that's awesome.
Just that legacy, you know? So
there's more time for that. I mean, let them experience life.
Dude, I hear constantly of people that start, second and third businesses that become like insanely successful in their 50s and 60s and all that. So, not that that's what I want to do, but I'll for my kids, man.
The laws are so volatile right now too.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
do you think they'll ever balance out? And
at some point, I think, with my partners at House of Dankness, I made a clause in our business agreement when I was stepping away from the day-to-day that was like, hey man, you guys have to keep the medical license. Because just like Prohibition, where they repealed alcohol after alcohol was legal forever and ever, they could repeal this just for a little while until they figure out how to monetize it and tax it better and lock it up for all their fucking cronies and buddies and stuff. But like, at least keep that medical. So if we go Schedule 3 and it becomes a medical only, they're not going to dole out more medical license. It's going to go back to those companies who originally had med licensors or states that had med producers. So, it's really hard to put the genie back in the bottle, and it's really hard to put toothpaste back in the tube once it's squeezed out. But wilder shit's been done, dude, So my goal and my hope and my only want from here out with the industry is I want people to fight for that home grow right. Everybody and their mom has a right, grandmothers, everybody has a right to grow a few plants at home. Mm-hmm. You don't have to grow 10 lights and a whole backyard or whatever, but you should be able to have 6 or 12 plants, no questions asked, don't care how big they are, how many lights you got over them, to supply their own needs and to supply their friends just with free weed for whatever. Just like Big Tomato, don't care about grandma growing her tomatoes at home. And beer, alcohol industry doesn't care about the small distiller or small home brewer or whatever. Like, weed industry should be the same, man. Even if you're a big ass corporation, fight for the right for the little guy to grow a few plants at home, because once he runs out of weed, he's going to come to your dispensary. Like, that's just a natural back and forth. But he should have the right, or she should have the right to produce their own product.
Yeah. Are most legal states, are you allowed to grow your own?
Yeah, usually it's a few, just a couple, but most legal states have something that's there. And what's like really just discerning sometimes is you hear of like, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get sued, but you hear some of these big multi-state producers that are like, yeah, we should like not allow anybody to grow. And it's like, that's just counterproductive.
Yeah. More customers for them, right? But
not really, because most likely what's going to happen is people are going to get, they're going to get freaking upset about the quality, because your quality is going to keep going down just to make prices competitive and all that. Mm-hmm. And ultimately the product gets worse and worse and worse. And then people just don't want it anymore,
Yeah. If you had to preserve 3 strains for your kids and the future generations, what would they be, do you think?
God. Ghost Train Haze.
Ghost Train Haze.
That's probably what I'm known most for, beyond just like Scott's OG and Star Killer and stuff like that. Like Ghost Train's just won a crap ton of awards, and it's rare in the aspect it's a good sativa. Ghost Train Haze, even though I'm not going to smoke it. Star Killer, man, Star Killer's just always been, ever since I bred that strain, it's won a ton of awards, but it's like my favorite head stash. Yeah. Like every time it just gets me to where I need to be. Great medical strain too.
Is that like a hybrid, or is that?
Yeah, it's like a Skywalker OG and Triangle and Ghost and, all that, and Chem. But it's like a little limey, a little like old Temple Kush, and then it's just got, and maybe because the high is really good for PTSD. I get hit up by veterans all the time that are like, bro, we trade that strain in our veterans group like it's great for PTSD. Maybe that aspect just, better for my soul, So Ghost Train, Star Killer, And then it'd have to be like lemon G or something, man.
Lemon
like
G.
not that's not for me. That's an old clone only.
Yeah.
But like that
Staple.
that lemon was just, I don't know. When you were a kid, did you get the suckers from like the bank and the doctor?
Yeah.
That were in the plastic wrapper with the paper stick? The lemon of that?
Yeah.
That's lemon G.
it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
That's cool. Oh. How do you protect quality when you're trying to scale it? Is there any way to, or is it just when you scale it, you lose it?
And it's not that you. Yeah, it's hard to, and I'll say this, and again, I'll probably get a lot of shit. You're never going to get good weed in a Mylar bag. Mm-hmm. That's a simple fact of life. Like if it's in a Mylar, it's getting banged around and squished and pressed up against and all that. And like used to when we would sell weed, even in the old days, bro, you'd go to Murdoch's or somewhere and buy cases of mason jars, and you would like jar cure it, not rattle it around, not handle it, burp it and let it air. I mean, like it was a methodical part of curing. Curing was like a big thing to like, some strains only need 2 weeks to dry and then maybe 4 or 5 days to cure just to even out.
Yeah.
And then they're really great fresh and terpy and all that. And then there's certain varieties, especially purple varieties, that, they need to be in a jar for a month. Mm-hmm. To like allow the chlorophyll and the anthracite and all that to like break down a little bit, so it's not so harsh and you get better nuance of flavor and all that. And really that's strain by strain. So when you're scaling, if you're monocropping and you're only doing one strain, you just figure out that strain and that's what you do. But if you're like, when I opened a House of Dankness, we only sold at that time rare dankness strains, and that was kind of a unique piece. Man, like you would spend couple days on certain strains, curing them a month at other times. And from a regulatory aspect, the MED hates curing. They don't understand it. They want weed dried, that weight recorded, wet weight recorded, dry weight recorded, package weight recorded.
Really?
And when you tell them there's a period that you want to cure this product, and there could be an additional 10% or 5% of that initial dry back that it could lose in that curing aspect, dude, it just rings alarm bells for them where they're like, oh, that's diversion. Like you're taking something and shipping it out of state. So like they never understood curing. So again, when we go back to when I was running House of Dankness, if you ask my friend, and I mean, people are like, oh, Scott sold out. And it's like, if you talk to the people who really know me, Soma, Jason from Dam Creek, I mean, my homies Greg and Phil and all that, they'll tell you at heart, I'm an anarchist. Like I'm a true anarchist. Subvert authority at every freaking moment you can. Never bow down, never comply. So even when I was complying, I was always questioning authority and questioning their intelligence. And it got to a point where MED, when they walked into a facility, they see me, they fucking hated it, dude. I mean, like I got investigated at one point for nothing other than talking shit to them.
Oh, wow.
And ultimately, they had a huge meeting with our company and were like, we don't ever want to see Scott when we're here.
Present. During a...
Yeah, like we want to deal with your wife. We want to deal with your partner. Like,
oh my God.
Like, fuck Scott. And that's a badge, man. That's a badge of honor, for me. So
that's funny.
Yeah, dude. So, yeah, man. So especially in today's political arena, like I really sometimes just have to keep my mouth shut because everybody that's blue and red, I think they're idiots, dude. Like I'm a libertarian, but at heart, always been an anarchist. I'm a punk kid. I love punk. I grew up on 80s and 90s punk. Like, even though a lot of those guys, after they got money, fucking changed.
Yeah.
My conscience never allowed me. And ultimately doing the psychedelic therapy, like, that is an integral part of me. And it's hard with my kids sometimes because it's like, oh, you got to follow rules or whatever. But at the same time, fuck those guys. Like
rules are made to be broken.
Yeah. So.
I feel you, man.
So with like my oldest son, like dude, he's so much like me. Like we've we've banged heads, and I had to accept, like, that's me rejecting authority. So I had to be less authoritative with him and more just a compassionate friend. Where Warbrook, he loves having the dad, you know? So it's interesting, man. You know, like, again, I love my boys.
Yeah. It's nothing like it, man. Oh, wow. What excites you the most about the future of cannabis?
Dude, just, I don't know, seeing people passionate, having employment in a really crappy economy. You know, ultimately it's farming, you know, so people that are like, I love farms. You don't see a ton of people wanting to go out and work fields anymore and stuff like that. So to get people interested in growing plants and seeing that genetic diversity beyond just, you know, what's hype, when people really get into that and that passion blooms, oh man, I love that. And I think going forward, as people become more discerning of the product and more educated on the product, and, you know, again, listening to the old guys like, oh, the weed back when I was a kid, you know, like, people are going to want to see that.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a way, you know, like, seeds only have a shelf life, and it's usually like not well kept 5 years, well kept like 10 years, perfectly kept 20, 25 years.
Really?
But like perfectly kept. I mean, like no change in humidity, cool, you know, not in a fridge or freezer, cool in a basement cellar type thing. Like I've had seeds.
Is that for most plants, or is that just for like cannabis?
You know, like, I don't know if I buy or I use fresh seeds from peppers and tomatoes that I grew, you know, when I grew up here. Usually they don't get more than a few years old. But like,
that's interesting. I didn't know they had a shelf life.
But there's like
that.
now that we're doing tissue cultures and things like that, there's a technique called embryo rescue where they've gone back with like Egyptian graves and stuff and physically taken a seed that's 1,000 years old and taken the embryo out of the shell and put it in a chemical and restarted it, got it to grow.
No way.
And been able to grow like there's a palm that's been extinct for, I don't know, 500 or 600 years that they've grown recently in the last 5 or 10 years.
Some ancient plants.
Yeah. You know, so
that's
like,
cool.
So like being able to do that ultimately with people's cannabis stashes, you know, seed stashes. So, you know, I've got seeds that are 30, 35, 40 years old, not personally from me, but have been given to me.
Yeah.
Hey man, my uncle had these and was a Hell's Angel and he passed away and we found him in his, you know, stash. And you try to crack a few maybe, you know, and you realize like, dude, germination's just gone on these things. But if you can put them into the hands of somebody who is versed in that embryo rescue, which people are becoming very versed in TC, and that's coming. You know, there's a couple of guys doing that. They're going to be able to pop seeds from the 70s and 80s and early 90s and early 2000s that maybe won't germ now, and bring back those lost varieties that are in seed form. And they might be a hybrid of something. But if you're able to grow large enough populations and all that, like good stuff's going to be found. But again, incredible. my generation is that tipping point where, yes, we're seeing legalization and modernization and acceptance and all that. And there's a ton of great genetics that maybe aren't as great as they used to be. You know, and that, you know, again, we used to call it genetic drift. Like over a long time of keeping a clone that you mom and clone, you might start seeing a little variation. And you can see variation based on environment, whether it's in Cali or Colorado or East Coast. You know, there's always a little bit of that terroir, you know, that people talk about with wine that plays into cannabis, especially Hawaiian stuff. It becomes distinctly Hawaiian.
Really?
Yeah. But indoors, even though you're really trying to like standardize your temperature and humidity and grow conditions everywhere for indoors, there's just a little variance that happens. But what we've seen is, and what we know now is, viruses and fungal infections and bacterial infections, whether they affect the RNA or the DNA of that strain, chip away at that a little bit, you know, over time. So that was that genetic drift that we're seeing, is just an infection that maybe you wouldn't kill or wreck that plant because it had some natural immunity to it.
Yeah.
But as they've been hybridized and things like that and selected on THC and looks and bag appeal and smell and all that without breeding specifically for mold resistance and virus resistance and frost resistance and, bugs and all those little chips in the armor have just degraded it.
Yeah.
And even if you breed with it, you're only getting a picture of like where that plant was when it was bred.
Mm.
And even if you TC it and take it back to where it's clean, it's still only as clean as to where that DNA or RNA has been damaged.
I see.
So we understand that a little bit. So like there's just kind of been this fade as everything's been inbred and lines of bottleneck, and you still find great stuff, but if we could go back to pre-2010, and pull genetics from there, I think there's a greater chance of like breeding varieties that have more resistance to hop latent or, whatever.
Wow. So you're saying that technology might almost be there to get seeds from the past and grow them
it totally
proper?
is. It's just just that knowledge from horticulture and agricultural has to bleed into cannabis and have people educate themselves on those techniques and then develop specific SOP for cannabis that might be a little different than like bringing a fig plant back or bringing a palm plant back. Like maybe it's a higher concentration of one chemical over the other, but they're figuring it out, man. There's some,
right now,
there's some
as
really,
we speak.
Yeah, there's some really smart guys online. Way smarter than I'll ever
amazing.
be.
Well, the technology is going to help it go a long way too, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh. What advice would you give to any young breeders coming up right now before the industry eats them alive?
Man, follow it passion-wise. Like, if something is really special to you and that's special to you because everyone around you that you allow into that bubble to see and experience and share, just, man, not just your average custy, but like your homies. If they see that, like, dude, that's a gift. You know how to select plants. Those plants speak to you, and like follow that passion. Like, don't be dissuaded by what the market's doing and what hype's doing and what popularity's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, focus in on like what's really special to you. And I always say, like, when I was an underground breeder, I was breeding for myself. I was trying to create strains for me and my friends. And early on, it was just like, if I had 100 extra seeds, I'd break them into 10 packs and I would just give them away to my friends online. And over time, that's how I built a reputation was, before DHK, before really, when there was just a couple of forums, like I was on there openly sharing knowledge. I was openly sharing all my genetics to people that I was friendly with. I was really like focused on my own, and it's a selfish way to be, but I was really focused just on my own thing. And then when I opened Stone Mountain, initially those first customers that came in, were like custy people. I hate saying that, but like they're custies. They're just like, where's the White Widow? Where's the skunk? Where's the, and you're like, dude, I don't have any of those, like this is, this and this is that. And you would sell it to them. And we had this, man, that just brought up a memory. We actually had this funny release back then because you had to like try to indemnify yourself from any wrongdoing.
A release form?
Yeah, like when you buy weed from us, this is what we expect. Like no smoking and driving.
Oh.
Like being like, don't get high in our parking lot. Like go freaking home and smoke this. But there was a line in there that was like, the weed you're getting from Stone Mountain is stronger. And that's ballsy to say, stronger than all the weed you've ever smoked.
Whoa, what
and
a statement.
And the benefit to that is you can buy less because you're going to use less. And people would go like, yeah, whatever, fucking, pompous ass growers or whatever. And they would sign it. And then they buy weed from you and, come back a week later and be like, yo, dude, that shit was super strong.
Damn.
Like super strong. And we did have a couple customers that would be like, call us on the phone 10 minutes later and be like, hey man, I smoked a bowl in my car and I had to pull over on the fucking road. So I'm sitting on the side of the road high as shit right now. And you're like,
you signed the paper,
like,
man.
dude, you signed the paper. Don't call me. Like, get off the phone. Like, don't freaking call him.
Wow. That's amazing.
And one of my favorite stories from Stone Mountain was we had an indigent program where, like, if you had a serious enough problem, and I from what I know, we were the first at Stone Mountain and the only one in the state at that time. If you had a serious enough problem, AIDS, terminal cancer, like something serious, and you couldn't afford your medicine, you could come into us, man, and we would just give you an ounce every month for free. That's and amazing. That was kind of a guideline for my growers, because back then, if somebody signed their patient form over to you, you could legally have 6 plants. So I had stacks of these. So I could have hundreds and thousands of plants. But like I could give them all to my buddies because they're all caregivers. Now they're all legally protected. If the cops ever come, hey, I got this stack of caregiver forms.
That's
so
great.
Like to be given those,
yeah.
The deal was, you sold weed back to me and only me, because back then you could sell to anybody, and I'd pay you $1,000 to $1,200 for a quarter pound. So $4,000, $4,800 for your pound, because we were selling $50 eighths. Like that was normal.
Wow.
So you'd make $6,400, and again, this was never like back then, especially. It was like never a money thing. It was like being legal, being able to do what you love, being out in the open, not fearing and having those nightmares of the cops kicking your doors in and anxiety that just rolled with that and shit.
So those caretaker papers really
eased
some people.
Dude, yeah, I got pulled over a couple times with not just a ton of weed in my car, but like a ton of grow supplies. And immediately with that, like you're just like, oh, I'm fucked. Like they're gonna follow me to wherever I'm going, and I'm fucked. But you hand them those caregiver papers, and they're like, all right, cool, man.
Oh, amazing.
But like the deal was, I gave you those papers, I'd pay you a good price, but you had to give me 4 ounces. Every month, 4 ounces out of whatever you're growing. And I mean, you're able to grow 10, 15, whatever pounds you wanted to, like whatever light setup you had. I just needed those 4 ounces to cover that indigent thing for my cancer people. And, and I just felt that was like a good thing.
It's a really good thing.
Well, I had this really, really old lady who was like, she had to be like 82. She was from Fort Collins. She came in, she was just rheumatoid arthritis, eat up, hands eat up, feet eat up. I mean, just couldn't move. And I was like, how'd you hear about us? And she's like, well, I was having a Christmas get together with my family, and my grandson, who goes to CSU, had one of his friends over, and he had like a Jimi Hendrix shirt on. So I waited till he was in the kitchen, and I cornered him. And I was like, can you get me some weed? Because I'd heard it like helps with my rheumatoid arthritis. And him being fearful of this old lady, freaking corner him in the kitchen. He's just like, oh, you're old enough. Like you can go get a med card and go buy it at a dispensary. Because at that time it was medical only. And so she was like, so I'm here. So we set her up on the indigent program. And I can remember, like, I sold her Golden Goat, which is like a good sativa that, a buddy of mine back in the day freaking bred. And she went home, and she had this horrible limp, like a waddle almost. And she went home, used it, came back about 5 days later with a fucking hop skippity-doo in her step.
No way.
Skiddly-doodly-doo. Came in the shop and was just like, I smoked some of that and I cleaned my whole house.
Holy shit.
Like I've had, people helping me clean my house for like the last 5 years. And like, it just feels like it totally alleviated my RA.
Wow.
And at that point you're like, all right, we're really, beyond just helping people that are dying.
Yeah.
You're really just helping everybody, man. So,
man, that's great.
Yeah. So ultimately, man, I hope everybody just realizes it's a very beneficial plant.
Yeah.
Even if you abuse it a little bit, it can still be very beneficial.
Yeah. It shrinks cancer, right? Cells and rats.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Like I said with Johnny, he was on what I would consider like a lethal dose of freaking RSO in the beginning, like just zombified
on the RSO.
Yeah, but it put his stage 4 lung and he had it in his bones. I mean, it put it into complete remission for 3 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, but when it came back 1,000 times harder.
Why do you think that is?
Man, I don't want to say that he started buying commercially available RSO versus like RSO that was being produced on the black market or home produced by people that were using FICO, full extract and all that. I don't want to say it was that, but the timing really seemed like that. It went from like, he would come out and see me and I'd give him his jar and he'd fly back to Alabama. And at that point, man, people were like, you fly with that, back to Alabama? And he's like, dude, I'm dying. Who fucking cares if they try to arrest me or whatever? Like, I'm dying. So if it's going to put me in a remission, give me a few more years, yeah, fuck them. But yeah, he went from getting it from me to, just sourcing it in Vegas or wherever he was, where it was convenient, where, it wasn't a bother to me. And it's heartbreaking, like I don't know, I guess I hold a little guilt for that, but yeah, he just, I think he went to a lesser, strong, potent product. And, when you do that, it creates kind of a firestorm with cancer. Sometimes it just comes back a million times harder.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sorry, dude. Oh, man. Well, yeah. What do you want people to take away from your work when you're long gone? The legacy that you're leaving.
Fucking nothing, man.
No?
Yeah, nothing. No, legacy is 100% ego driven. I am fully content, and self-sure, and doesn't matter what anybody wants to say. Like, my piece of the Colorado history etched in stone, years ago. And I don't care. I don't fucking care. If my kids want something with the legacy, like, that's on them. But for me, I've accomplished all my life's goals 10 times over.
Wow. And
at this point, it's about helping, loving, comforting. Someone said to me a few years ago, and this is something I tell myself every morning when I get up. You are not here to be loved, understood, or comforted. You're here to love, understand, and comfort. And the moment as a male can fucking grasp that and install that, everything changes.
Yeah. You got to enjoy the present moment.
Oh, yeah. And it becomes not about you. It becomes about your children and your family and your friends and, people that, followed you and supported you and all that. Like, for them to see you grow and mature and accept and ultimately, become a grandfather or whatever. I'm not yet, but like,
that kind of change.
Yeah, that change that comes through age and wisdom and things like that and experience. That's ultimately what's important. And for my children, it's tough, man, because I try to educate them in a way that they don't make a lot of the mistakes I made growing up, or hardships, that I might have gone through that totally were unnecessary. But your dad telling you shit sometimes, like, I don't care, like they got to make those decisions. They got to make those mistakes. Yeah. Ultimately, when they make the mistakes, you can't be there and be like, brr, 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 brr. You got to be there and be like, can I help you? Like, can I give you some advice now? Like, you want to hear what I got to say? Like, do you want me to tell you the story of me fucking that up and, like, whatever?
It's a good tact. I think they got to learn their own lessons a little bit, but
man,
lots of guidance along the way.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Full Canopy Genetics. They have their $100 Grow Club, which gets you one of these grow bags every single month with a different strain in it. They're very low effort to grow. All you got to do is put them in a low light area and basically watch them grow. After they inoculate a little bit, you break and shake the bag, leave them, and in about 3 weeks, you have a full bag of beautiful mushrooms. Go to fullcanopygenetics.com and put in code STASH25 for additional discounts.
The toad. Oh, okay. Well, let's get into some of that. We'll cut that up. It'll be perfectly fine. But
yeah.
You know, you've been experimenting with some psychedelics. You know, we were talking about the toad earlier. You're wearing the shirt here today. I gave you the poster.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorites?
Dude, I tell you, you know, like I've always been a guy that appreciated mushrooms, appreciated really clean, good L. First time I did mescaline, it fucking blew my mind out of the water.
What is that like?
It's you know, it's a derivative of, you know, cactus, like the peyote and San Pedro and all that. It's beyond, like, I hate when people are like, oh, it's hallucination. It's like, it's not really, you know, some people like over exaggerate the hallucination sometimes. Like, you know, when you're tripping, it like just turns the volume of life and color and the experience of happiness that a lot of people are really unfamiliar with. Like, it turns it up and allows you to experience that. And mescaline adds, bro, it has this 4-dimensional texture to everything to a point. And I'm not a fan of stuff that makes you vomit, but like it turns everything up to a point where you're like, you connect almost with, I mean, I'm not a big person that's like regeneration or reincarnation or whatever. It connects you with that power source. You know, a principal law of physics, law of energy conservation, whatever, is no energy is created or destroyed. It's just transformed. And I believe, and I was brought up like a super religious Southern Baptist. And as a young age, I questioned, again, anarchist, questioned all that shit. You know, and it wasn't that, you know, like I've been baptized as a young man and all that, but the questioning of faith, which is a no-no, has always been something from a scientific standpoint that, you know, as a kid, the first thing I questioned was Noah's Ark. You know, you tell me a story about a guy on a boat that rained that collected all these animals from across the world, and it's like, yo, dude, how did you get a penguin from Antarctica and a grizzly bear from Kodiak Island to live cool on that boat?
Yeah.
And you know, like, it never just made sense, and I got a lot of flack for that. But if you had explained it to me as like an interdimensional being came down and took DNA sequencing from all those animals somehow, and then took them away while this disaster happened on Earth,
it's a little more
believable. I would have believed that. Even as a kid, I would have been like, yeah.
Well, that's what they say when they x-rayed the deep sea scrolls recently, like probably 10 years ago. It's a floating pyramid, Noah's Ark, I guess.
I mean, like, if you look at, again, religion, organized religion, you can be religious as whatever, but organized religion is not something humans really ever did until Catholicism and even with Judaism and stuff. Like, there was more of this, like, believing in a lot of an array of spirits and gods and deities. Yeah, Babylonian and Sumerian and all that. And, you know, you take a lot of the Bible stories, even Old Testament and stuff, and man, again, my best friend's Muslim. I was raised Southern Baptist. I've read the Book of Mormon. Like, I'm studied in a lot of religious in the aspect of just questioning why we're here and where we've been and all that.
I love this.
But you read all those stories and you can pull those same stories from fables and mythology that go back thousands of years that have just been adapted into this theology of Christianity or Judaism or whatever, Islam even. So, you know, it's become this convoluted thing to control people. Anarchist. I don't like being in control. So I'm always going to question that. Well, having that out-of-body experience on the table, I can tell you, if you want to look at that as a near death and I passed over or whatever, that other side is energy and love and peace, and everybody's connected. And recently in scientific studies, doing like illuminated FLIR type of imaging of people when they're dying. There's a glow, like a light that people have that exits when they die. And some people like, that's your soul, like whatever. To me, that is the return of the energy. That's not created or destroyed. It goes back into that universal energy. Mm-hmm. And whether or not we are reincarnated into whatever, whatever, like that's not the point. When that other side, everybody's equal. Everybody's loved. Everybody, if you want to think of hell, your hell is here, man. It's like what you do with your life and your experiences and all that. Because in that Passover, people talk about it, you're shown kind of a snapshot of like everything from like when you're really little to when you get older.
You experience that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that happened in like a flash before I was sitting with whoever, my great grandmother, like whoever that was.
Yeah.
God, I don't know. Whoever you're sitting with, whatever was in that was that energy going back into that universal energy. And in my soul and heart and mind, like I know that's it. Like what we do here on earth, all your horrible shit, however you treat people, like whatever, that is shown to you. But then you're forgiven and you're back into that energy. And you have to learn, if you get kicked back in and you remember that shit, you have to acknowledge that and accept it and apologize and make peace with everybody that was within that realm of just what you were shown, your hell or your, before you get to your heaven. And I came back from Africa September of 2023. And while I was in Africa, man, I tripped on shrooms like every other day. And it was amazing because the stars, like there's not light pollution down there. So you see like the Milky Way just spread out across. Wow. And every night, dude, I would sit up we were right up on the border where at one point with Botswana. So, no light. And I would sit up every night with the campfire and I'd be the guy to put the campfire out after everybody went to bed because I was tripping. I wasn't going to bed 4 more hours. And I would just look at the stars and, feel that connection with the universe like our ancestors did before there was light pollution and before we were looking to a God that's going to send us to hell or whatever. Like we would look into those stars, for guidance and history and, mythology. And again, I've never been a big drinker, but during that period, I was struggling because I was drinking more with friends, like socially drinking, like all the freaking time. Internally, my dad was an alcoholic that died early. He died at 56, lifelong alcoholic. My granddads both, even though they lived a longer life, hardcore alcoholics that had gone through periods of sobriety and stuff. But ultimately, your body gives out from, your liver don't work anymore and, vasculitis and all the other shit, heart attacks and stuff.
Yeah. I
was struggling with this like inner demon of just, I want to stop drinking. And it's not that I didn't have the willpower or I wasn't realming into a point where like my family was like, oh, Dad's becoming an alcoholic. Like I was struggling where I was like, I just don't want to drink anymore. But then I would go like 3 weeks, not drink, hang out with friends, have a couple of beers, go back home and just feel shitty and guilty about it. And again, like psychedelics helped, but again, they make you face that answer sometimes. And I was constantly fucking facing that answer of just like, I got to stop drinking. Mm-hmm. And I'm hanging out with a friend and again, I won't name his name, but hardcore conservative guy that you would never ever think was a psychedelic dude. But weed head, like everybody, crosses all borders, crosses all politics, whatever. Weed head. I'm telling him and, joking about, smoking DMT and whatever. And he's like, dude, have you ever tried that frog DMT? And I'm like, Pufo? And I was like, no. It's actually, that's scary, like that kind of scared me because you could have a heart attack possibly,
Oh,
like,
is that right?
If you're just not cut out for it, like it's happened. And again, like that's a really strong experience, but again, I'm always up for doing something one time, super hard drugs. I'm never going to do heroin and shit like that.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, I can go back. I have smoked opium. Like again, I never fucking expected it him. And he's like, you ever tried that frog fucking venom? And I was like, Bufo? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I got like this little bitty bowl of it. My brother, who's a cool guy, gave it to me, and I'm fucking scared of it, dude. Like, I don't want to do it. So something in me, and I always talk about manifesting. Like, sometimes in this universe, man, you just manifest things like, like the universe provides in the craziest ways sometimes. People I've met, experiences I've had, but, again, it's put before you. I've been reading and hearing about everybody having these, like, amazing life transformations on ayahuasca and ibogaine and, PTSD being cured and alcoholism and heroin addiction, Oxycontin addiction, like
ibogaine,
like fentanyl addiction, like totally changing people. And I was like, all right, give it to me. So I smoked it, you vaporize it. I smoked it. And again, it was that kickback to 2010 when I'm on the operating table.
Really?
Bro, I passed through the white veil, like into this room, and I can see how people get religious on this shit, because I was in this room that was just, imagine the most tiny, fractalized Mandelbrot type of fractal of stained glass. I mean, just a million pieces of stained glass all around.
A micro mosaic.
And that fucking ball of energy that I saw sick on COVID was floating in front of me, draped in this, like, a cloak, hooded cloak, but I could still see the ball of energy. This hooded cloak, again, of stained glass.
Wow.
And we had this just amazing conversation that was like 3 fucking hours of just where I've been in life. Hey, I'm back. It's good to see you. These are the things you've definitely changed. These are the things you still need to work on. I'm so glad you're here. But you know what? You've been struggling and you're unhappy right now, and alcohol serves you absolutely no purpose, man. Like, what are you doing with alcohol? It's like no point in your life. And that ball of energy floated out of the freaking hood, and I felt it like penetrate into my brain, and I'm assuming it was my pineal gland or whatever. And it just, I felt an instantaneous peace and never, ever wanting to drink again.
Wow.
And I came out of that March 13th, 2024. And I can be around people drinking or whatever. I smell it and it makes me fucking sick.
Me too.
Like, it makes my stomach just roll. But at the same time, that door that just is in your head that is flooded with just empathy and acceptance and love and, everything, dude. And,
wow.
When people talk about meeting Scott over the years, especially even my buddies, they're like, there was like pre-2010 Scott. There was like 2010 to 2020 Scott, or 2012 to 2020 Scott. And then there's been 22, 23 post Scott after I started psychedelic therapy and, and all that. And,
but then there's after 24 Scott now, alcohol free, right?
Dude.
Right.
Yeah.
That experience.
And again, like, it makes you face the ego-driven want to just be successful and have money and have your legacy and all that, and you realize, like, no, I've done that. Like, I've done that. There's an acceptance of, like, now we have to, like, really just focus on your kids more, focus on just happiness and making sure that when you're gone, that no one looks back and goes, Dad was a fucking asshole for X, Y, and Z. Like, yeah, he might have been an asshole when I was younger or harder on me or more driven or, more business oriented. But when I needed him, like, really, in those really, people say the early formative years, and I was around with my kids, but becoming their friend and understanding my own faults and understanding just that guidance of not wanting to, you never want your kids to have faults, but like allowing them to have those experiences, and at the same time not being there to just catch them, but like immediately as they hit the ground being like, yo, dude, that hurt, right? Like I'm helping you up, like I've done that. Let me tell you my story of doing that.
Yeah. That's great advice.
So I tell I find my kids now are always like, oh shit, dad's dropping dad lore on us, because there's a lot of things that you typically don't, share with your kids. Mm-hmm. But as they get older and they become, more understanding of that journey, you start telling them shit, and like even stuff that your wife or mom, might not want them to hear because they're like, oh God, that's the wildest shit ever. Especially some of the DMT stuff. You're like, not that I ever want you to do that. Like you can experience it totally or whatever, but like if you're ever having a problem, that is a solution. You can take these extra steps and I will be there with you. Like I will fucking be in that ceremony. If you need me to find it, I'll source it. I'll be that facilitator. And again,
that's really
like,
cool.
Like I went to see Soma in Amsterdam last year, and dude, I was still glowing, from that experience, like,
right?
Months later, and he could see it because Soma's like, he's in tune, and he runs I don't know if it's a church or whatever, but he does a ceremony, a bufo. So like while I was there, he was doing bufo ceremonies with people, and I'm like, bro, how do you smoke that shit every day? And he's like, oh, I'm just taking like whatever's left of like whatever they're, hitting. So it's just tiny or whatever, but it like lifts my spirit and whatever. And I'm like, it was such a strong experience to me. Like, I don't ever want to do that shit again. I mean, I will if I need it.
Yeah.
But like, it was so strong and so moment defining and life changing that, again, I don't want that door to shut.
Yeah.
I don't want to be told I'm not supposed to be there, which can happen sometimes. You're like, oh, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be here. Slam, and you're not allowed back.
Whoa.
So like every time you buff it, just you get little whirls. You don't ever take off again. So I don't want that experience. But at the same time, if my kids ever needed it, or a friend of mine ever needed it, or whatever, I want to help them facilitate and get better and become wiser and understand the faults and stuff like that. And man, empathy is just, disappearing today, like people are so afraid of diversity and a multitude of ideas that, we're almost to the point where you're willing to accept a dictator, like it's just, that's fucking wild to me, man,
Yeah, it's crazy times.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into the political shit.
I think the world would be a better place if everybody,
it
was mandatory to try that, before you.
I don't know if DMT is actually something that needs everybody needs.
Microdose of mushrooms.
But yeah, mushrooms, bro. Like I think everybody could deal with a little tea in their life just to turn the technicolor up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And again, question everything you've been not necessarily told. Because science and math and art are very important. But when you question something just when you not question it, when you just accept some shit blindly because the masses accept shit blindly, like that kills the individualism, that kills the creativeness, that kills the diversity of life, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and it might not be right either, what you're trusting too. You got to make your own decisions.
Got to make your own decisions, man. And nowadays there's so much misinformation with, I laughed a few years ago. Somebody was like, we have all the power in the world in our hand, and we choose to look at cats and dumb memes and, people just fucking themselves up to a certain extent, whether it's plastic surgery or, whatever, to try to become this thing or person that they think they need to be.
Yeah.
When really, bro, it's just 4 or 5 grams of mushrooms in a dark fucking room and just come into grips with the answer.
Mm-hmm. What this is, why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's deep, man. What about LSD? How does LSD help you or make you feel?
Dude,
I always feel like whenever I do it, it's like smoky in the room. It always looks like there's like
humidity's fucking forming or something.
I can just see like it looks like I got a smudge on my lens or something.
Dude, as a young guy, it was always that thing that just, man, it made me appreciate music. It made me appreciate art. When as a Alabama farm kid, whatever, like that was your focus is athletics and success and like whatever. Like it really opened my eyes to just there's a wider field of view. And you know, again, it's not something you want to do all the time, or you know, people, you know, you got to be able to accept that timeline. We're like mushrooms for 4 hours, you know, you're out of it. DMT, 20 minutes, 10 minutes of like talking to freaking God, and the other just kind of being like, whoa, okay, that was crazy, you know? And in 20 minutes, you're totally back to normal. You can go to your fucking job, like whatever. That's crazy. It's wild. Like you got to invest that 10 or 14 hours or, you know, and I hear people all the time like, oh, my cousin did like 5 hips and tripped like, you know, 5 days. And it's like, no, he didn't. You know, like he probably tripped really fucking hard for 12 or 14 hours and then felt really weird for fucking 5 days because it altered his freaking brain chemistry enough that he's flooded with endorphins and serotonin and, you know, all those neural pathways are fucking talking to each other and stuff. And, you know, like that's a different feeling that most people are, you know, aware of. But for me, like I went from, you know, in a psychological therapy or psychedelic therapy aspect after doing the microdosing of mushrooms. And I have a friend that's like, bro, we're adults. We fucking macrodose. We don't microdose, you know? And you're like, all right, if I want to kill my ego and, you know, like have a crazy time, okay, we'll macrodose. But like there's those little tweaks allowing your brain to have serotonin and endorphins and all that helps rewire some of those neural pathways to where you're not having those crazy depressive episodes or, you know, fucking up and down waves or whatever. It starts evening out that line. And then you start paying attention to like, all right, I don't need that all the time. Let's see how long this flat goes before I start having this little dip. And in that aspect, like I started microdosing a little L. And I mean, like, you know, if a normal dose is 100, 120 mics, I was doing like 20 to 50, just like a sliver. Not enough to make you trip. Again, just turn the Technicolor up on. The difference with L to mushrooms was I totally stopped having the ripple, and it was just up, started going up. Is that right? Started going up, man. And my positivity and those depressive episodes like went away. Instead of going away for 3 to 4 or 5, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, like whatever, 6 months. You know, I don't need to do this till another 6 months. So, you know, we start tweaking with that. And again, it's all anecdotal evidence. But as psychedelic therapy is becoming more mainstream and more companies are starting to tweak the molecules of L and stuff like that, man, there's new medications that are being looked at that are like just a change in the molecule of L that they're going to give to people that are having these depressive episodes. And then they don't trip and they don't have those depressive episodes for 6 to 9 months. Wow. There's actually a DMT nasal spray that's in phase 3 trials right now. 5-MeO, which is what Bufo is, but Bufo is 5-HO and 5-MeO, so it's a combination. 5-MeO in a pure form and a synthetic form. Hamilton Norris, you know, dude's a godsend, has put out like a proctor for people to be able to synthetically produce 5-MeO so no one fucks with the frogs. The frogs are endangered. You shouldn't be out there. Okay. Extremely illegal in Colorado. It's extremely illegal federally to like fuck with those frogs. Are they
out here?
Oh yeah, it's Colorado river toad.
Oh really?
Not heavily here. I mean, I won't say the river. I've caught them north up between Fort Collins and Loveland, but very prevalent in the Four Corners area and all down through Phoenix and Arizona and shit. They're all down through there. Again, not enough population for people to be abusing them and all that. Don't fucking go out and catch them.
Lick them.
You don't ever lick those things. You could die.
Oh, really?
You might have a seizure. Heart could stop. But yes, 0.02 is all you need to move.
So you get way too much if you lick.
It's a tiny little thing. Okay. But like, I don't remember what I said.
Don't do too much.
Yeah, don't too much. Don't fuck with the frogs.
Yeah, don't fuck with the frogs out there.
But yeah, man, I mean, as people are, looking to experiment and psychedelics become more mainstream.
Yeah.
I think they're, as big of a weed advocate as I've been all my life for how much that plant can help. When you look at psychedelics, weed's really a Band-Aid. Put that Band-Aid over the cut. It's going to help it heal. It's going to give you time. It's going to do all that. Psychedelics rips that Band-Aid off, digs into that cut, digs all the infection out, makes you look at that cut, and then allows it to heal. Yeah. And I think where we are with the lack of mental health now, especially now, I think they just cut even more money out of, social services and mental health issues.
It's worse than ever.
As many homeless people as we have, and a big population of the homeless. People go, "Oh, they're druggies," and it's like, well, they're druggies because they're dealing with mental stuff. Mental illness, and that mental illness can be depression, it can be alcoholism, it can be, PTSD, it can be whatever. I think psychedelics, because they were again part of our human history and the story of us evolving.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a very important part going forward to heal us. And again,
I agree.
Not for everybody, and not everybody needs to be healed. But again, it can make you reflect on yourself, bring down that ego a little bit, and I think overall a society becomes better with empathy and love and understanding and compassion and comfort.
Mm-hmm. And mushrooms really do make you feel all those things.
Yeah, dude.
A little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah.
So I'm glad they're being legalized and being studied more here in Colorado too, especially.
Yeah, and there's dudes just like making concentrates of cannabis. There's guys out there making concentrates of mushroom stuff now, like psilocin and all that. And some of it can be kind of scary. Like I had a buddy that they synthesized and concentrated Amanita muscaria, so muscimol, and he's like, did a tiny amount, what they thought would be, because sometimes you got guinea pig that shit. Guinea pigged it, and he was like, bro, I couldn't move for 9 hours. He was like, I was just inside my head, like in a fucking horror film of just like everything I'd ever done bad for like 9 hours.
Jeez.
And he's like, and we realized like we needed to do a 10th of that dosage,
Wow.
And then a couple of years ago in Germany at the Berlin show, like that first Berlin show,
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane, when they had legalized, it was 2 years ago, I guess. That show was ginormous.
I heard that was
dude. It was wild. There was like 5 mushroom companies there that were handing out muscimol extract to people. And I think they called 20 ambulances that first day.
Whoa.
Not for weed, but for fucking mushroom extract. So the second day, all those booths were shut down. They had like caution tape and shit and walls around them.
No way.
And there was a letter sitting in everybody's booth that was like, hey guys, come on now. Like, we just legalized weed. We're trying to, make this like a acceptable thing.
I feel like I heard about it.
We had 20 people go to the hospital yesterday. If we have to call one ambulance, we're shutting this shit down.
Wow.
So you're like, all right, there's still some guinea pigging going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's those mushrooms that make you see small people. Have you heard about
this?
Is that for real?
I don't know, bro. I heard it's like Thailand or something.
Really?
They say like it like creates like little diamonds of fairies and shit. It sounds crazy. I would definitely eat that.
Try those out, yeah.
So,
yeah, very cool. I think mushrooms over the next 5-10 years are going to have a lot of new health benefits, and now that they're researching it,
yeah, man,
it's going to be great.
Yeah, definitely.
What else is going on with you?
Nothing, bro. Nothing. Just watching my 2 boys become awesome, more awesome every day.
They're men now.
I'm taking them to Japan at some point in March.
Oh, sweet.
Be Warbrooks. He's a senior, so it's his senior trip he wanted to do.
Awesome.
And then Hendrix, my oldest, kid's been an anime fan his whole life, dude. And even I had a private tutor for him at one point to learn Japanese when he was like,
when he
was little. And it's funny because he can still speak a little bit of it and understand it. But it's been like a top family trip for him. And since he's 25 and he's in school for HVAC and, he's becoming his own person, I told him this was like the last family trip I was paying for him. Like if he wants to come on a family trip, like Warbrick still has, 7 years worth of family trips left that I'll pay for. But Hendrix from here out wants to go on a family trip after Japan. Like he's got to pay his own way, So,
oh boy.
Yeah, man, we're doing that. Like, everybody was always like, Scott, why didn't you, become an MSO, like a multi-state operator and stuff like that. And again, it was at that time where I was really coming to acceptance of like stepping away from the day-to-day, delegating and turning over that, brand visibility aspect to something that I'm never going to be like, oh, woo, that's the greatest thing ever. So it was like, like I'm happy to have it here in Colorado. That brand's known for Colorado. When you come to Colorado, everybody wants to get Rare Dankness or House of Dankness or whatever. And I'm fine with that. But at this point in my life, man, I don't want to be traveling all over the world and all over the country just to go look at mediocre fucking weed and, stuff like that. I'd rather spend all that time with my wife and my kids. I mean, me and Pamela have been together 31 years this year.
Wow. Congratulations.
So, yeah, man. So I'd rather spend time with her, even though she probably don't want to spend time with me at this point. But, we love to travel.
So you're saying Rare Dankness won't ever leave the state? Or
it will.
Maybe possibly one day?
It will. It will someday when someone buys it. And I mean, I've been like, if somebody wanted to come buy it from me at this point, I would sell it, way cheaper than 10 years ago I would have, because I understand it's a brand that needs to be developed and all that. But that's not a goal for me, either the partners at HOD will buy it at some point because they've realized they've invested so much time, into being that, or one of the big ass companies somewhere in the world will buy it and,
take it where.
Yeah, take it where it needs to be. And if my kids again at that point want to get back into something, like, bro, grab the name. The name is strong. Not even my first name. Just grab that, your last name and freaking run with it. And that's what's funny is like people sometimes go, Scott, what's your biggest accomplishment at this point in life? I'm like, oh, it's my kids. It's always going to be my kids.
Yeah.
But when people ask like, Scott, tell them about yourself. And I go, I'm Hendrix and Warbrick's dad. I don't ever go into like, oh, I created the House of Dankness. I'm Rare Dankness, blah, 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 blah. That isn't even a thing for me anymore.
They are your legacy.
Yeah, dude, they're my kids. They're my legacy.
Yeah.
So when people are like, I'm Warbrick and Hendrix's dad. And what's funny is like, they never really, kids never appreciate you. And I mean, even as kids, we would be in Boulder, and I've always been really well known in Boulder. I used to joke. Someone said, Scott was infamous in Colorado before High Times made him famous. And I appreciate that infamy. But when the kids were little, I would be in Boulder eating, and people would, see me and be like, oh, and it was like, star treatment sometimes. And I never was comfortable with that stuff, but especially when my kids were little, dude, I fucking hated it. And most people knew that, and they would be like, Scott, oh, sorry, And I always really respected that. And I would, shake their hand or give them a hug or whatever. But as they've become older and they wear RD shit to school, I mean, they get away with wearing it at school because it doesn't look like weed stuff. It's just the skunk.
Yeah.
But like teachers and shit would be like, oh.
They know what's up.
Yeah, why are you wearing that? And they'd be like, oh, that's my dad. And they're like, oh,
awesome.
Your dad's fucking cool, And there's like, no, he's not. Yeah, no, he's not. So I'm finally becoming somewhat cool to my kids. But they're funny because they'll be out places and people will be like, oh, Rare Dankness, dude, that's my favorite shit. Like I buy their stuff all the time, or I work for that company or whatever. And they'll be like, my dad appreciates it, and then they're like, your dad.
That is
like,
so cool.
Yeah. So.
Oh man, you got such a great life.
Yeah, dude. It's what you make of it ultimately.
Yeah,
man.
you do create your own reality.
Yeah, you create your own heaven and hell, bro.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
What about the THCA? You think that's just going to come and go, or?
I mean, again, there's a place for all that shit.
Yeah.
The hemp bill man, the hemp bill opened it up for a lot of people to be able to produce and make money and compete and all that stuff. But again, like everybody that's complaining, that's like, oh, that killed the freaking blah, blah, blah. You killed the regulated industry and all that. It's kind of like good. You know, like, so you know what? You're not doing a good enough job if somebody who's growing outdoor shit or whatever is able to pass your quality of your indoor or whatever. The best weed will always be mixed light greenhouse depth. I don't care what anybody says.
Wow.
Outdoor weed, it's always got dirt and bugs and blah, blah, blah. Indoor weed, and nowadays, especially with LED, you don't get the same intensity of the sun, and, you know, like, you can control your environment a little better and inputs. But, man, the greenhouses and indoor facilities that have been built with glass roofs with light depth and all that, absolutely some of the firest weed, you know.
Why do you think that is? The sun,
bro.
Sun just has it.
Sun ultimately brings, you know, people have always wondered whether THC and resin is a byproduct of whether it protects the plants from like insects or whether it's a UV blocker for the plant. But we know through stress of insects, which is horrible because I don't want to ever smoke bugs. I'd rather not smoke toxic pesticides either, but weed that is outdoor always has bugs and bug feces in it, no matter what. Weed that's indoor that uses beneficial bugs, again, has dead bugs and feces in it. So environmentally controlled, clean, positive pressure, you know, wise, like where bugs can't penetrate and stuff like that. Like if you're keeping it clean and sterile and your employees clean and sterile and all that, I mean, we proved with House of Dankness, you know, like we had no bug pressure, we had no mold because we started that facility clean. I kept my employees clean. I made them shower in every day, which is not cost beneficial.
Wow.
But to maintain a good product, you know, you have to maintain cleanliness. You know, when I was a underground grower, I was known for my organics, you know, before I went hydro for the commercial facilities. I was known for my organics. Like I was a student of Soma's super soil. Subcool at that time also had a super soil. I had the Moonshine mix, which was my thing, but it was like a heavily amended soil that you didn't have to feed a ton of inputs or newts or whatever, and it wasn't bug riddled. You know, like it had a lot of beneficial bacteria and mycorrhizas and stuff to help the soil break down. But I've never been one to understand like the purpose of having a ton of bugs in your grow room. And that's become kind of an accepted thing with living soil. Is just like
it's like the organic,
super organic, and they're ripping the leaves and stems and placing them over the top with, you know, beneficial companion crops that are growing in the soil. And dude, you can get mushrooms and all kinds of shit to grow in that dirt, you know. But again, like it's not as clean and pure as it could be.
Yeah.
So a lot of places have resorted, even with outdoor weed, just to like dunk those plants sometimes when they're harvested, either in pure water or a peroxide water mix or like whatever, just to like help clean some of that dust and shit off of it or whatever. But again, man, it's like the water hash. You're washing off a little bit of something, you know, a little bit of oil that's on the glandular trichome and stuff like that. And it's not as good as dry sift, you know. Really clean dry sift, absolutely most perfect product. Rosin made from perfect dry sift, absolutely one of the best products.
Yeah.
But I'll always be and my kids hate it, I'm a bong hitter, dude. You know, I had the High Times freaking baseball shirt back in the 90s that was like bong hitters, which was like their softball team or whatever. Nice. I've always been a bong guy, even in my 50s.
Yeah.
And I'll be I like ripping a single hit of something and just being good for hours.
Ooh,
you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because like, not Warbrook, Hendrix, he went through a period where he liked weed, didn't like my weed.
Why?
Too fucking strong. You know? Yeah, he's just like, Dad, I can't fucking smoke that. I'd rather get a vape pen, you know, and just like get a little high. Like that stuff puts me to sleep or makes me super paranoid. Or he would take it to work and share with people, and they're like, bro, where the fuck did you get that? You know, and he's like, that's my dad. You know?
Oh man. Amazing.
But yeah, he's ultimately, I guess your kids are your best critics.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be the most.
Man, we're going to lie.
Bro, they're going to be the
around
most
the bush.
honest. Yeah, they're going to be the most honest.
That's right.
Beyond yourself.
Yeah.
They're the best critics.
How are you feeling with this dry January? We're about halfway through right now.
Dude, I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm good.
Nope.
Yeah, after that Bufo experience and just cutting down alcohol, it actually made me kind of reevaluate my relationship with a lot of stuff. And, I cut back on everything, but at the same time, I realized in that moment of clarity that, like, damn, I developed kind of an unhealthy relationship to where weed, again, that Band-Aid, just that Band-Aid of like, man, I gotta mow the grass today. Fucking help me. Damn it, I gotta fucking, like whatever. Instead of being like, I'm gonna make that shit more enjoyable by smoking a bowl, it was more of that, like, I'm gonna help myself just get through that, whatever.
Totally.
And yeah, man, you start taking bigger tolerance breaks, and really that was kind of the eye-opening thing to me with commercial weed was like, I can take the fucking biggest tolerance break, 2 months. Let's go 8 weeks, take 2 months, not smoke. And then you get a hash hole or some rosin or whatever from somebody, and first dab's good, and then after that you're just like, man, that leaves me craving something that's like a lot better. And again, like, it's that homegrown, personally loved weed that, just
nothing like it.
Yeah, there's nothing like it, man. And I told this story on Soma's, and I'll tell it here as well. But the eye opener with that was a couple of New Years ago. Last New Year's? Wasn't this past New Year's? It was New Year's before past. I was at a friend's party of Pamela's, her Pilates group, all her girlfriends and all their husbands, and they're all just dispensary people. Like, there's no growers in that group or anything. Like, they love to have a good time, man. They'll eat mushrooms and fucking party and whatever, but no weed growers, So that depth of knowledge or whatever it's limited. Mm-hmm. And everybody's smoking, and I mean smoking, fucking smoking, man.
Some mids.
They're smoking the best. I mean, most of these people are really well off and work for amazing companies and have way more money than I ever did. But at the same time, you're just like, I don't want to smoke any of that. I got this one joint that I was going to smoke by myself outside, but let's pass it around the room. And then it just fucking stops the party.
Wow.
And like, not in a good way either. Just like everybody's sitting in their seat, no one's talking to each other. Like, music's fucking stopped, and you're like, that's good weed. And then they're like, where did that come from? And like, Scott grew that shit at home or whatever. Wow. But yeah, like, it takes a long time to accept your shortcomings, and sometimes it takes a supernatural experience to make you accept some of that stuff. But yeah, dude, I am all about the home grower.
Yeah,
always have been, but even more so now.
It needs to happen.
It has to happen. We have to fight for those rights. Otherwise, this last 50 years of dudes going to jail for life and mandatory minimums and all the hurdles that everybody's overcome, like, that shit was for nothing. Yeah. If we don't have the right to grow at home, like, that shit was for nothing. It's going to go backwards
and turn into garbage.
Yeah.
Like, when Canada legalized and you could only buy weed from the government, it was mail only.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that shit was garbage.
Yeah.
So I've heard.
Oh, dude. People. No, I watched a $190 million facility being built up there in, was it London, Toronto, or London, Ontario, or whatever? Yeah, we'd fly into Toronto and drive out. I mean, I watched this fucking spaceship get built by the Canadian dudes from just a ridiculous amount of investment money and stuff, to the point where it's like, I mean, I'm walking around it like, y'all don't need that. Y'all don't need that. Y'all don't need that.
Overkill.
Bro, it had a safe, like an internal safe in it that was bigger than my grow here in Denver. Like, I mean,
just to keep the product?
To keep the product. It was just like, holy shit. Wow. And ultimately, all those guys were fucking just scamming the investors and embezzling all that shit. And I mean, I I saw it pretty quick because they were just like blank checking the guy who was building it.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, there has to be some oversight in that. And we were going to do like a rear dankness project. And I think they turned 2 rounds. And in my contract that I had, at that time, it was like, I'm going to come up and look at it. And if I say fucking destroy it, you're going to destroy it. And they hated that shit.
Yeah.
Because I still got paid. You know?
Oh, fucking right.
But I was going up there and being like, nope. You know, like y'all can turn that into topicals or edibles or whatever, but you're not putting that on the market with my brand on it. Yeah. And then ultimately, like here in Denver, you know, when I brought the partners in 2019, 2020, you know, they wanted to bring a management team in, somebody that was way more positive than I was, someone that wasn't going to fight the trying to recruit that 10 million that they freaking, you know, put in on that place, you know, 7 to buy half of House of Dankness. And the other was like a real estate play that I had no involvement in, you know? Really? So, you know, you're an investor, you want to recoup that. You know, I was happy with who they brought in, and, you know, I know he's a good grower and all that, at least, you know, acceptable for what this state is, and he has a great reputation. So again, you fucking, you have to let go, you know?
Is that how it started, like that deal, or did you start it and then kind of bring on partners?
I self-funded that entire project through a private loan from a New York real estate investor. And it was funny because he hired a consultant, like a really kind of well-known consultant. And the guy came in and like, you know, this is what I envisioned for, you know, this building that you're going to invest in. And then I hit him with mine, and he was just like, fuck, that's a way better thing, and fired the guy. I don't know if he paid him or what, but, you know, the dude was like super butt hurt. But at the same time, he was like, you know, I helped design that place. And it was like, well, you consulted for my investor, but like none of your shit ever was put into play in that facility, you know? So whatever. But yeah, I took out basically, he owned the building, and I took out $7 million to build that place. And it took me a year, you know, 2015 into 2016 to build it. And immediately, like the plan was like a 5-year plan. Just 5 years, run it, pay off as much of that debt as you can, find somebody, invest in it, pay off the rest of it, like whatever. I didn't put any money down. I didn't risk my brand. Like, he never had a piece of rare dankness or anything like that. I put my house up as like a personal guarantee, which my house was only at that time like a $500,000 house, $470,000 house. Now it's worth way more than that. But at that time, you know, and that's a big thing where you're just like, fuck, I could lose my house.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't pay this shit back. And, you know, first few years, like, again, it was never to like just rake
exit
it.
Strategy.
Yeah. Never money to rake in sales. Like I had low prices. I had low, you know, I had high overhead, had low prices. I was putting out great product. We were producing for like $2.56 a pound, which is like super low, and still keeping it hand trimmed for the most part.
Wow.
Like that was,
damn.
You know, so like from an investment standpoint at that point, man, you came in, you'd be like, that's a great investment. The weed industry's going everywhere. But at the same time, I was watching all these states start coming online, Michigan, California, Oregon, Oklahoma, and all that was chipping away at Colorado, because you don't have to come here anymore to like get that product. You can get product in your home state, not have to fly it back, not risk getting it seized, not, you know, all that shit. So again, you have to have that vision, forward vision of like what this is happening, what's becoming. And I was like immediately like, I'm shopping for freaking investors. And we had some mechanical issues, like the chillers broke, like an engineer fucked up our chiller. So again, we replaced all that. You know, like it was a hurdle, but we overcame it. But at the same time, like I could see the stress on Pamela. I could see the daily workers just being like, what the fuck is Scott's problem? Because I'm walking around just like disappointed. I say it, disappointed dad. And having a disappointed dad is sometimes worse than having a dad that yells at you.
Yeah, it's not very motivating.
Because he's constantly looking at you, just like, what the fuck, you know? Or with me, I was like, get out of my way, I'll do it.
Okay.
So I was like killing myself to fucking try to meet this standard that I had. And at the same time, educating everybody. I mean, that facility was one of the first facilities where you didn't have just a grow team that like floated with, you know, did the veg, did the moms, like whatever. Like I departmentalized that. And that was, no one had done that. Like when you walked into my facility and you showered, if you were a trimmer, you stayed in the trim room. If you're an extract person, you stayed in the lab. If you're a harvester, you stayed in the dry rooms and cure rooms. If you're a veg person, moms and veg. If clone was clone. Like that was a way to not only keep it clean from having cross-contamination, it was a security way because I was trying to create IP and SOP and teach methodology. And, you know, there only needs to be a couple people that know that whole big picture.
Yeah.
Or that can handle that whole big picture. Because in the black market days, when you were the grower, man, you were the grower, the cloner, the moms, the fucking harvest guy, you did everything, man. Troubleshooter, IPM, like you were hash making, like you were
packaging,
dude, disposal. I mean, like you were everything, and everything had to be top secret. Everything was on you. But then as this became like a job, you had to like specialize those people. You know, like specialize them into hash, specialize them into veg, specialize them into clone. And I had key fobs, like, 20, 15, well, that only allowed access into that room that you're allowed, or two rooms that you're allowed. So by doing that, I had 30,000 square feet of canopy, but there was only like at the max 12 guys that ran that canopy. They were individualized to those rooms or two rooms. So there was like no cross-contamination. And then you had, 15 dispensary workers, 15 trimmers, 4 people in hash and packaging. I mean, like there was teams of stuff. But again, nobody had done that.
Was that required, or were you kind of just trying
it was creating
set the standard?
Creating workflow, creating the SOPs and all that stuff. And at the same time, like you can't teach everybody everything because it's just too overwhelming. And some people don't grasp the nuances. It's like people that like to drink wine as opposed to a sommelier, like that sommelier has got vast more experience, not only of just like the flavors and nuances and all that, but like how those vines are grown and the terroir that it's under, and like drought years and water years, and I mean like all that crazy shit. And when you start trying to put that on like your normal non-autistic Asperger's type of fucking personality, man, like it's too much, just way too much.
That hyper focus is, I think, is good. Yeah, in each department.
Yeah, man. So that was like a kind of a setting the standard, and at the same time, it's delegating. So
you got to be good at that.
I was trying to delegate all that stuff, and I was spending all my time in the cure room because to me, the cure was the most important. You can grow super good weed, whether you package it and cure it and all that. Like that's a different, like total ball game. And it's a ball game again that the enforcement people don't understand. But as this becomes better and people are more educated, like I think that's a piece that will become like you have the guy that's like, I'm the cure specialist, So I'm like, yeah, dude, fucking you're snooty, Well, you know everything about weed, man.
Yeah, curing it.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. Well, we're getting close to 3 hours here. Should we talk about some alien stories? Have you had any alien experiences? Or seen a UFO?
All right, Tony, I'm going to tell this story. I apologize, bro.
Oh, Tony.
Yeah, my friend Tony, who he was one of DNA's original growers.
Oh, okay.
Reserva Privata. Ultimately, he became Elemental Seeds for a while, and now he's up in Montana, fucking running a couple grows up there. Me and Tony, years ago, I mean, this is before Starlink and all that bullshit. We're up in the Never Summer Wilderness, hunting, camping, enjoying ourselves. And I don't remember that there was a lot of alcohol. There probably was some mushroom and weed. but like we're just watching the stars, man. And again, I'm more believing in interdimensional freaking beings than I would be somebody's going to waste their fucking time flying from another planet here. But bro, we're looking up at the stars and this light fucking comes in and like, you know, satellite or space station or whatever, like straight line travel. This fucking thing comes in, it's a white light comes in, it's like way up in the fucking stars, zigzags down, comes way low, changes into a red light, and then just fucking bounces.
Whoa.
And again, yeah, I'm not a big believer in crazy shit like that and whatever, but I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what the fuck? And Tony goes, you saw that, right? And I was like, what'd you just see? And he's like, that fucking white light that turned into the red light. And I was like, yeah, I saw that. Wow. But that's it. That's it.
It looks like it got closer.
Oh, dude, it didn't come like red. Crazy close, but it probably went from like, I don't know, 3 miles up to a mile up type shit. But
color.
But it changed fucking direction like 3 times.
Oh, really?
Changed color and then just went straight out into the stars. And we were like, again, I'm just like, again.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
whatever, bro. You know.
Damn, that's pretty cool.
No,
who knows what it could be?
No, you know, I used to spend a shit ton of time in the woods, and I've seen all types of critters. You know, like I've never seen fucking Bigfoot, even though he's supposedly in the Pike National Forest. I've never
right over here.
Yeah, I've never seen Bigfoot. But that was definitely something that you go, I don't know what that was. And it was way before drones. It was way before Starlink. You know, like, yeah.
Interesting.
But again, interdimensional beings, completely possible, dude. Human eye only picks up less than 1% of light waves.
Yeah.
So imagine like if you could see the 99% that we can't see.
Have you heard about this glass that somebody invented that allows you to see like other dimensions? And he went missing, but it's like,
no,
it kind of like there's some video of him putting it and you see like ships. And
really?
Like, yeah.
Dude, I mean, if you read like
rabbit holes about that.
If you read old military shit, when they first developed night vision goggles, like Vietnam and stuff, those guys were like, they saw demons and all kinds of shit. Like it's wild when you go into that rabbit hole, man.
Yeah.
You know, but again, you know,
yeah.
who the
so
fuck
you believe in interdimension, or you think that's very possible?
Oh, totally possible, dude. Totally possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely, totally possible. And I'm a scientist. I'm a firm believer in, you know, no energy is created or destroyed. It just changes form, man. Just changes form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heard that.
Yeah. So have you seen the DMT laser thing that people are doing?
Yeah, we just watched a video on that. So that seems like consistently a thing.
Haven't tried it. If somebody whipped that shit out for me though at some point, I definitely would look into that. But
everything is code.
Everything's fucking code, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know? I even saw I think CNN just picked that story up.
Yeah, and Travis Pastrana,
the motorcycle guy.
He said it. He swears by it. Like I've watched other videos. People are like, "It's there. It's a test we do. It's always there. You look up, it's up. You look down, it's consistent."
Dude, some of my crazy, just unexplained experiences beyond the old native lady and the ball of fucking light. I've had one time I had everything changed to like turquoise and cyan blue and green, to where I went, oh my God, I damaged my brain. You know, immediately I was like, oh my God, I damaged my brain. And then just like dragon scales, everything turned into Mandelbrot fractal dragon scales, like my skin, everything, to a point it looked exactly like when you look at Aztec drawings and Mayan drawings. I mean, like I was in that fucking realm type of shit for just a few minutes, and you're like, all right, that's crazy. But like walking around, open eyes.
Was this from DMT?
Yeah, just like in DMT, not from Bufo or any of that. Just like, and that's the type of shit where you start going, all right, maybe I'm not seeing everything I'm supposed to see, type of thing.
Yeah, definitely opens your mind to what is possible. It sounds like I've never blasted off.
And again, people are like, well, it's just your hallucination and whatever. I'm like, bro, I know hallucinations. I know when shit is different. That shit's different. And, you know, and again, it's not even that visual field. It's the message. It's the message that you're given. And whether that's your consciousness giving you that message, or it's God or an entity or a past life or a past relative or like whatever that message is, if you shut the fuck up and just listen and then implement it. I mean, parents mechanic, again, the answer is easy to find. Facing that answer is extremely difficult. And like, if you just listen, it's cool to be like, whoa, but at the same time, why am I here? What's the purpose of the universe? Is there a God? Like, don't fucking ask those, don't ask those questions. Just listen. Listen to what you're being told.
Some great advice.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think I might try some DMT this year.
Go for it,
in the
bro.
right settings. I think I've been thinking about it for years and I've just been really kind of scared, but now from hearing stories from people I trust and believe and just the benefits.
Fear is healthy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fear is a healthy thing, but be ready for change. Sometimes even be ready for change that you might not even have thought about. Also be ready to experience, review anything that, and I mean, I don't want to be like anything that's bad ever happened in your life. Anything that you might be holding trauma from. And I'll tell you this story. I was a hardcore cyclist from the time I was fucking 15 years old to the time I was 35 years old. 20 years. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of miles a week. I've ridden some of the most famous trails. I've worked on some of the most badass bikes. I mean, I've worked with some of the most talented fucking bicycle people in the world.
Serious?
After I got cancer, I had testicular cancer, Lance Armstrong disease.
Wow.
They took, and this is hard, they took my right testicle.
Wow.
So I'm an amputee in that aspect. They took my right testicle. And I did chemo. I made excuses for 15 fucking years on why I didn't want to ride a bike anymore. I didn't feel right on the saddle. It caused me pain in my perineum. I just don't have time. I mean, like all these fucking excuses I made for years. Till after one of the DMT trips. And I'm facing some of those past traumas and all that shit. And I realized, like, the happiest times in my life, fucking been on a bike ripping down a trail with friends and, just seeing beautiful vistas and cool ass shit and jumping hills. And even though I'm not boosting airs anymore or nothing, I don't want to hit the ground. But I realized I was holding this trauma and I was blaming fucking cycling for my cancer. And my grudge was so hard on that. I'd given up something that was a vital, integral part of my life for 20 years, man. And the second I acknowledged it, I wanted a new bicycle. I wanted to ride again.
Is that right?
And I built a fucking sweet-ass custom bike for myself, and I've been riding. It's probably when my foot's all fucked up. But I've been riding, a few miles every week, by myself, just...
feeling that joy again.
Dude, feeling that joy again. And it's funny, I came in the first day after I finished building it. And I mean, used to I could build a custom bike, including wheels, in 6 hours. Frame up every single piece.
Wow.
It took me a week and a half.
Oh.
Because my skills weren't there. I'm learning new technology. I'm refining
after
15 years, I'm finding my way again. But when I was finished I fucking went out on it and I had just the best time. And I came back in and Pamela was like, God, you got a huge smile on your face, whatever. And I was like, I'm still fast as fuck. Those muscle memories and all that shit. I was like, but man, I'm still fast as fuck. And,
yeah.
I've boosted a couple of airs, even though I said I wasn't going to and shit like that. But yeah, man.
Well, I'm glad you found that again. And
dude, it's like being a kid again, Yeah, but
that experience makes you face that.
It's that fucking reflection of everything you've done in your life and what traumas you're hanging on to. And again, I've had friends that have, kicked alcoholism, kicked drugs, kicked PTSD from their life. And, you know, it's a strong, powerful, I mean, that shit's naturally in your brain. It's a strong, powerful drug. And the fact that we're at the cusp again, I mean, they were looking at it years ago, but we're at the cusp again of like real research, real cures for some of these mental illnesses that the world's dealing with. I'm all for it, bro. I'm all for it. You know, I don't have a single friend that's ever been like, oh, like I think I want to try ayahuasca, whatever, and been like, oh, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, let's go to fucking Peru. Like, let's do it.
That's awesome.
I'll be there with you to puke my guts out while the jaguar comes and talks to us. You know, so
yeah, that's cool. I hope more people experience that if they need it, and there's more research done on it and all that. Becomes more mainstream. Yeah, I feel like our ancient ancestors knew more about it than we do.
And again, I'll apologize to Pamela. I'm sorry we had these conversations. I know you hate this shit, but you know, education and experience. And
I want to say hi to Pamela too out there. I haven't seen her forever.
Yeah, man. Dude, that lady loves to work. I don't know if she loves to work, but yeah, she's driven to work and stay busy and all that stuff. And good. You know, and it is good. But at the same time, I'm just like, I do my thing. I breed seeds and enjoy fucking life. And
gotta do what's right for you.
Yeah, dude.
That's great. Well, Scott, man, it's so many great stories. You're such an awesome dude. Thank you so much for coming in today, man.
Appreciate
told
it,
a lot of stories, inspired a whole generation of growers and everything. So
awesome, man.
Legendary, man.
You guys fucking make me proud because I'm proud of you anyway.
Awesome, dude. Anyway. Well, thank you so much. We'll talk to you.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys for tuning in. What an amazing episode. Check out Rare Dankness. In your Instagram is...
I'm Rare Dank.
Rare
I mean,
Dank.
there's every
Dankness.
Dude,
Miss Dankness.
There's Rare Dankness brand. There's Rare Dankness Global.
Pamela's Miss Dankness, right? Or is that still a thing?
Nah, she's Rare Dankness brand.
Okay.
But nowadays she's Attitude Seed Bank USA.
Okay.
Like that's her and Natalia who run Attitude in the UK. Like they built this new company and that's their thing. I stay completely out of her fucking way.
Good for her. Yeah. Amazing.
You know, and yeah, she's doing absolutely amazing with it. And yeah, dude, couldn't be more proud of her. But at the same time, you know, like I'm back to just loving life, and as my mom always said, just floating through like a fucking butterfly.
I love that. I love that, man. Well, thank you so much again for coming in.
Yeah, brother. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it, guys.
Good one.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Robertson Stash Podcast. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to support us, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, we want to hear from you. So if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out. Hit the website, hit the link. We'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Puffco, the gateway device that still earns respect. Puffcos are a great entry-level dab device. It's not some corny beginner toy. It actually rips. It actually tastes good. It actually respects your rosin. All you do is set it, forget it, and get high. Go to puffco.com, grab yourself one today.